And greetings and salutations, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Timeless Gamer Show, where our games and our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain timeless. And the podcast now is streaming live in Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And for all of our archive videos of previous episodes, you can still check them out by going to the YouTube channel or the Facebook page of the Timeless Gamers Show. Oh, and you can also check out our website. Just go to timelessgamers.com. That is timelessgamers, one word, .com. There's plenty of stuff there already, and you can still listen to us talk. If you don't want to watch the videos, that's fine. Just go to the major audio streaming platforms out there by searching in Timeless Gamers Show. Oh, we would also like to mention our affiliates that we have at the moment here in Timeless Gamers. We got BitMap Books and Streamyard. So previously on this show, we did had a discussion regarding our favorite gaming franchises, gaming series, and for all those who are curious on what each of the panel had to discuss, just go to our socials, like I mentioned earlier. So for this evening, it's just going to be another casual discussion as you see on the title right there. Why do we collect video games? Here in Timeless Gamer Show, we are not just we're not just casual players or professional. We're not just players. We also collect video games and somewhere in between as well. So for this episode, we are being joined. Welcome back to the show, Sir Bernal Drew from JRPG Philippines.
Good evening, guys, and thank you so much for having me again. And the reason why I am invited here again is because of the background here, and the reasoning for this is both nostalgia and both as future proofing myself for retirement somewhat. I just want to play video games on my off time, and that's the main reason why I became such a geek. Anyway, that's the short end of it. Back to you, Sir Joe. Thank you for the introduction.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Drew. And representing the Sega Mega Masters, Sir Viraj, who also suggested this episode. So, Viraj, say hello.
Hello, welcome to this very special edition of the show. Every show is a special edition, let's be honest. But this one's really interesting because it's about collecting, isn't it? And I think it's a topic that's very close to many people's hearts who always tune into this podcast, because everyone collects something of some sort. But video game collecting and those sort of, not just the video games themselves, the memorabilia around video games. So there's plenty of stories that I'm happy to share as someone who did collect and does collect to some extent now, but also somebody who sells video games, who's a retro game reseller. And I can tell you stories about the interactions I had with many of my customers at the gaming markets I attend. So yeah, looking forward to the show.
All right, thank you for that, Sir Viraj. So, why do we collect video games? I mean, the hobby itself, ladies and gentlemen, this is no different from any other collecting hobby out there. Okay, some
Definitely.
people collect stamps, some people collect coins, some people collect posters, some people collect shoes, some people collect hats, caps, what have you,
Wigs.
right?
Wigs.
And
Speaking from experience, eh? For
speaking of experience,
those who can't see, Mr. Drew
mm,
does not have hair, so that's what
and
there.
and the thing about collecting is that there are some pros and cons, really. I mean, if anything, it's just food for the soul for the person who is collecting it.
Mm.
One might question one might question the meaning or the value of why people do what they do in terms of collecting. But
Yeah.
here in Timeless Gamer Show, at least we can share our opinions or our point of views on why we do this shit anyway. All
Mm.
right. So let's talk. So before we go to the person who suggested the episode in the first place, let's talk about. Let's go first to Sir Drew. So what we're going to do on this episode, guys, will be we'll be talking about how we started collecting and with the challenges that it imposes, and then how do we cope with collecting as far as we are doing till now. So, Sir Drew, so let's do it with the first part of the show. How did it all started?
Mm.
Okay, so it started with a dream, as most probably everyone. When we were kids, everybody has this particular dream where, hey, we were taken to the mall, we were taken into the game shops, we were taken into some place by our parents during our birthdays, our or the holidays, Christmas or whatever, and this has something imprinted into our young minds since, especially for those who do not like going out, the ones who are not the sporty kids or the party kids, the ones who just, I just want to be alone, play with these things. I really enjoy these things. So it started mainly maybe by cartoon association before I got a family I got my hands on a family computer. Everybody was watching cartoons back then. Maybe I can't remember the first instances which cartoons we really did I really did watch during that time. But anyway, by the way, I just wanna say hi to Sir Koji down at the comments. Thank you so much for the support, and thank you for following me here at Timeless Gamer. And good morning in Canada. Anyway, as I was saying, my love started with toys and Saturday morning cartoons, and the first time that I got my hands on a family computer, I know I'm not one of the OGs who started with the Atari, but Famicom is what I got when I was 6, 5 or something. Anyway, so the first time that I played a family computer, it was with my brothers. We were all sharing that family computer, and first games I ever played was Duck Hunt, followed by the Super Mario Brothers. And the game that really got me to love video games was Rackman 2. I think I have said this before. Anyway, so that's the start of my fascination with video games. I get to live in a world I could control. I could control Rackman. I could be something I am not interactively, not just watching it from a perspective where you don't have any control over it. I fell in love with Rockman 2. I was not good at it. I keep dying on that game, but I love that game, and it's part of the few games that I really really love up to this. It's an icon for my love for video games. Anyway, so as I was saying, so my love for going to the game shops, going into the toy shops, my dream, and this is a stupid dream, and it's stupid in a sense that we as kids were always told that video games are just for kids. It's not as mainstream as what it is right now, because right now everybody's collecting, everybody is doing this for I don't know what the main reason is, but most of them are have something to show on to social media. But me, I just really dreamed of having a room like this, something that I could sit, a place where I could sit, look at this, ogle at this. I have access to this vast amount of video games because this is a culmination of not only me as a kid wanting to have my own store like setup in my own house, but also a dream of being able to live that feeling of nostalgia when I had as a kid going to the stores that I want something close to this. What close? It's not as close to the toy store. It's more like close to the feeling that I had when I was a kid while looking at all of these toys and video games when visiting these toy stores and this uh this game stores. Anyway, I'm just gonna backtrack a little bit more. I think I have said this on a previous episode, that also one of the reasons that I am collecting is when you have a hobby, a passion, like for us video games toys, when we have guests, when we have some visitors that come to our house, this is also a topic of discussion, and
Mhm.
it also showcases a part of us. So you have a guest, hey, you, I see you have the this, that, or whatever. You know, for a reason, for a fact, that you have knowledge about this and you want to talk about this because this is what you are showcasing in your house. And when you invite a guest, so when you invite somebody in your house to come inside your house, you trust that person, you want to see if that person also likes these things, and you want to discuss these things, like what we do here at Timeless Gamers. The reason why I love doing podcasts is because I want to talk about this thing. So, and as I have told in the recent previous podcast, when my wife asked me before why I do this, it's because, as Sergio was saying earlier, some people collect sneakers, some people collect cars, some people, we collect. I want to collect video games because I want to see video games and toys inside of the house, because that what makes me happy. So that's how it all got started as a kid growing up, and I got to achieve it. Last year we got this house. Luckily, my wife agreed to give me the small room, and not really a small room, but the perfect real
It's
estate
big enough
for
for
me.
you. It's big enough for
Yeah,
your
big enough
collection.
for me. Big enough for me. Well, I'm not complaining. I
I
love
mean,
my space.
I mean, from the looks of things, I think it's still an excellent use of capacity utilization. You know, you've actually filled that capacity quite well, and it's a good presentation. I mean, there's a lot of game rooms I've seen in my time where I'm thinking, goodness me, this is a kerfuffle. This is a bit of a carbuncle. What is this? You know, this is all over the place. But when I look at yours, it's very well packed and neatly put together and organized well. But yeah, it's an outstanding bit of if you just look at Vernal's, Mr. Drew's uh, collection, is actually very nice and well presented. And I think that's
Actually, this is the fourth time that I have reorganized
well,
everything
yeah, I'm
out
not
here.
surprised. You have to do it a few times. Even my room always gets changed. Like my one is look, I don't have it, nothing like you. You know, mine's very minimalist actually. It's just a television with some choice Blu-ray discs and some mini arcades up there. You got a Capcom. I don't know if you can see anything up there. Yeah, you got a Capcom bit there, and you also got the two towers which have my mini consoles and mini arcades in there, and that's pretty much my collection. You got some more DVDs there. A lot of things I keep in storage because it is a headache to try and like basically put things on a shelf. And in all fairness, if I really, really want to play it, then I'll dig it out of storage. But I've come to realize from when I started collecting, that it's a slightly different story for me than it is for you, Drew. And this all comes to the my origin is I grew up with Sega Mega Drive, and every game that I was given to me by my parents. Is what they gave me, and that's also in storage as well, because I don't play Mega Drive on original hardware anymore. I play it by emulation. So there's that chapter as well. And it's the same with Super Nintendo and PlayStation One. Um, I started collecting when I started working, to be fair, because after that fifth generation, my parents didn't buy me any more video games, so I'm left to buy it for myself, right? And when I first started working, I worked in a consumer electronics shop, which did actually happen to sell video games, fortunately. And my job was to sell video games, and that was my department in that little shop, to make sure that all the games are all on the shelves and merchandised correctly. And and then I started to get paid, obviously, when I started in November 2002. And whilst I had that sixth generation era, and I would say that sixth generation era of video games, you had what, Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube.
Ye-
You had the big four there, didn't you? All you couldn't exactly call Sega Dreamcast the big player then at that point, because when I joined, it was out, it was going out. But it was
I think that's the last true generation for the console wars, is that four
sixth
console.
generation is when it all went down, and that pretty much set the standard at that point, which made Sony probably the more dominant player. I mean, obviously the 360 did better than
Yeah,
the PS3, but Sony was way
yeah,
better after that. But for me, the first thing I bought was, I thought, okay, I need to, because my parents were really finicky about the video game, because there's only one TV in the house, and I hardly got time to play the other consoles. I bought myself a Game Boy Advance SP. Okay, and there's an episode on Timeless Gamer podcast where we talk about the Game Boy Advance, and you'll see my collection there. I'm not going to drag it out here. If you want to see my Game Boy Advance collection, yeah, there we go. Drew's got one. I've got a golden one, okay, with a Triforce on it. It was exclusive to Europe, which Japan didn't even get. All right. Anyway, so but I have I then started to buy games on the Advance SP, and the beauty of that of a handheld is you don't need a TV. You're not disturbing anyone. It's just you, and it's your little environment there, and you got it there. And the beauty of handhelds is if you're doing a lot of commuting, which I was then, I was going to college, university back then, and if it's an hour commute, you can get a bit of game done. So I love the Game Boy Advance SP, and the games were in these like cute little square boxes, and I looked after everything, and I just thought there was just something really cool about that format. So when you start spending your own money, and video games, let's be honest, they're expensive. Okay, back then they were expensive. I would say video games then are more expensive than they are now. And my wages were minimum wage. It was a minimum wage job. Back then it was like £3 an hour I was on. And a Game Boy Advance game was £30. So I'd have to work 10 hours to be able to afford that £30 video game. How about that? And today, people complain about the price of video games. The minimum wage in the UK is, I think it's like £10 or £11 now, something like that. So, people, the video games costs, okay, you can argue they've gone up in price. There's no such thing as a £30 video game anymore. They're probably about £60, £70. But you don't have to work nowhere near as hard as I had to buy that £30 video game because your minimum wage salary is higher and salaries have increased. Video games.
But if you're going to consider inflation, Sir Viraj, ain't that basically the same thing? I mean, if you're going to factor in the price of the games now with minimum wage and then comparing that before.
I mean, okay, it's a tough one because, we talk about £30 back in 2002, 2003, okay? And you look at it with inflation in 2023, 2024, that £30 video game is worth £60 now in today's money. It's doubled, okay? But the wages have also increased as well, higher than inflation, I would say, for a lot of people. And those handheld, it's very hard to say now because video games back then, a console video game, because I'm talking handhelds now, there aren't really any handheld consoles apart from the Switch, and that's a hybrid. So video games now are £40, £50 on release, maybe more. Depends on if it's a AAA title. Some titles can be 70
I think it's only for the Western side because right now Japan is in such a bad state that now our AAA release game is releasing for 9,990 yen, and minimum wage. So minimum wage right now is 930 yen here. So you have to work 2 whole days to be able to afford a video game,
On
and
day
that
one.
is
On day one
yeah.
release. Really?
So you say
Yes.
9,990 yen? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
So how much is that?
that's how much
That's
Yakuza.
cheaper in the UK. It's £50 here in the UK. That's affordable for us for a new AAA title on release. There was some
Well,
games here.
well, here in
minimum-
Sydney, when Stellar Blade dropped, it's like 110 Australian dollars.
Yeah, well, what's 110 Australian dollars into pounds? I'm always going to compare it to my currency. All right. That's what I'm gonna do.
No, I mean, it's good to compare because
Yeah, it's
I
it's
just want
good to
to,
compare. It's-
because
Okay,
there's
yeah,
a
so
lot of things, there's a lot of factors to consider. Like, is
Yeah.
it import taxes and all that? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's about
And
£8.
that-
£8. That's
that-
expensive. I would say it's around.
Yeah.
You and I are on par here because here in the UK, video games can be £60 to £70 on release. But then the fact of the matter is, video games do go down very quickly after they're released. Now, give it 3 months.
yeah,
to
that's true. Even here, that's true.
appreciate is all those innovatory band customers, all those people who are excited for the game, buy it on release and have to have it on release. Yeah, they're the people who are funding the industry. Good for them. But people like me who used to fund the industry and buy things on release, we've gotten wiser and older and realizing, no, I'll wait 6 months, maybe a year. I'm not in a hurry to play the video game. I've got enough video games behind me that I need to pay a premium for one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and that's one of the perks of being a collector because you're really not in a rush to buy day one, unless your name was Ayuden, and that's the only one that I got pre-ordered for this year. because that's below. That's the one of its selling point was it's below the price of AAA releases, since
Yeah.
9,990 yen was for the
Mm.
AAA releases. This one released at 5,670. So one of the huge factors that and reasons why I got it day one. So
What's
pricing really
sorry, you didn't say what was minimum wage in Japan? What is minimum wage in Japan?
930 yen previously. 2 years ago it
Let's do
was
some conversion right now.
860.
So how
It
much is
was 860 2 years ago. 860. Now it's 930.
930 yen? So that's hourly, yeah. So it's £4.70
Hourly.
in Japan. Goodness me, that's quite low compared to the United Kingdom.
That's quite. It's low. It's really low. It's just that
So that was me. That was
Japanese.
actually me in 2003. Actually, if you look at the contrast of say, if you look at £990, 9990 for a new AAA release, that's what £50 in UK money. Obviously, he's gonna have to work 10 hours to afford that game. So that was me in 2003. You know,
Yeah.
10 hours. So obviously, maybe the UK economy or scale of economy shifted a bit, but in Japan, it's still very
I
much.
mean, our minimum wage here is like 25,
minimum.
more or less, Australian dollars. That's minimum wage, more or less.
Yeah.
And
That's
let's
relatively
not even get
comparable to you
started
guys.
talking about the minimum wage in the Philippines, because
Yeah, there is none. There is none. No, you get it doesn't. There's no stipulation. So I
Minimum
was.
wage in the Philippines is like what, 2,500 pesos?
yeah.
I mean, look. Good
That's
luck.
why it's okay for us three to compare it, because he's in the UK, you're in Australia, I am in Japan. We're considered to be living in first world countries, or based
Developed
on
nations. We don't say
yeah.
first world anymore. It's politically incorrect. Okay, so developed nations, developing.
Okay.
Okay, we're not
Okay, developed countries. Okay.
Well-developed countries.
Well developed countries.
Yeah.
Oh, me.
All right. So, in regarding with my history, so how did it all go? Well, just like you guys, um, the only reason why I started I started collecting when well, the drive was there, but of course like, I couldn't really afford it, right?
Yeah.
When I got when I got my first gig my first job, of course, when we had when we had our PlayStation 3. Okay, when we had our PlayStation 3, we already me and my brother were already employed. We're already generating some income there. And of course, with the PlayStation 3, there's no way to pirate those games in the Philippines or Viraj. So what we're getting is basically the
No,
real
no,
stuff,
no.
right?
Still no way to
So
pirate. So well,
right,
yeah.
there's no way to pirate the PlayStation 3. Because with PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 back in the Philippines, we
you
buy a
became
lot of bootleg stuff, right?
the Blu-ray format put an end to piracy. Let's
Right.
be honest.
And then when the PlayStation 3 hit, there's no other way to get those games but to actually buy the game. So that's how it started.
Yeah.
So, and me and my brother were JRPG centric gamers.
Yeah.
See, and all throughout that time, we were able to enmass at least the English, the Western localized JRPGs anyway.
Yeah.
And then it grew up in mass.
Hmm.
And then by 2016, when I decided to work here in Australia, I'm like, okay, if I'm going here, I need something to pass the time.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I should be carrying some of my video games with me, right?
Hmm.
And then a few months before the big move, um, my brother-in-law introduced me to the RGCP. That's the Retro Gamers and Collectors of the Philippines, to you guys. So they
What
introduced
year
me
is
to
this,
that.
Sir Joe?
This is 2016. So they introduced me to that.
Oh,
Yeah, it's 2016. And around this time, all we had is just PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 4 games. That's it, JRPG games.
Hmm.
And then when I was introduced there, and they were selling a lot of stuff for cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, not necessarily cheap, but affordable for what I can afford.
affordable in RGCP. So
Right?
affordable.
affordable. So the first one that I got from our GCP is from Chairman. It's from Chairman Erwin. A
Mm-hmm.
Nintendo Wii, already modified, and so I got that, and then one thing led to another. I keep buying and buying more stuff,
It
Yeah.
always
and this wa-
starts with
and this was
one.
before,
It
yeah,
always starts
and
with one.
yeah, and this is before that, and this is before the my big move here in Australia, and I'm like, okay, and then when I realized, oh shit,
So at what
it's getting
you
my,
also move in.
Very, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Very.
I'm also moving. So aside from the Nintendo Wii, eventually I started buying PlayStation 2 games from RGCP. I'm started buying PS1 games from RGCP. Like the actual games now, right? So it's not they're no longer bootleg. So I'm starting to collect
Mm,
one thing after another, and I'm like, then I look around. Oh shit! Am I supposed to bring all of this with me?
yeah.
I did. So which I did.
Yeah,
So
you
which I
did.
did. So I went to our local one of our local courier service. Sir Drew will know this. DHL. You guys know it's DHL,
Yeah,
right?
show us good. Yeah.
So I went to DHL and I asked. So I'm planning to bring all of this with me. This, and they're like, I made a vlog about this actually. And they said, "Oh, sir, if you're going to bring all of those software and all of those software because they're technically software, all those software in Australia, you should file this, and this paperwork because
Yeah.
apparently here in Australia they are quite strict in regarding in regarding with software products. They just want to make sure that all of those are authentic. We're not peddling, and because there are a lot. If this is they said that if you sir, if you are just transferring like at 10 games at most, we're not gonna say anything. But because you're transferring 50, 60, 70,
Mm,
al- almost 100 pieces of software,
mhm.
you might flag the authorities. Understandably so, because they might think I'm doing this out of commercial purposes.
Yeah.
And I said, no, these are just all of my personal collection. And so I ended up sending in two boxes, one box full
Yeah.
of games and another box full of the all the consoles that I got from RGCP.
Mm.
And how's that? So there they are.
Before before we continue on this one, Sergio, I would just like to comment something.
Mm.
During 2016, I was actually doing the exact opposite of what you were doing with RGCP. We were there. I was there with my
You were
family.
selling stuff.
We were selling stuff because I know for a fact I cannot bring everything here. So I had to sell all the consoles, and the only things that I brought here was the PlayStation Vita and the
Oh, you know what?
3DS, basically
Most likely,
handheld.
Sir Viraj, the one that I got came from Sir Drew.
Wow.
Maybe,
Yeah.
most probably.
Hopefully. Yeah.
There's a
So
very high chance.
yeah, so if you're going to, I'm showing you guys a picture of the consoles that I got.
Oh, we'll wrap the hell out of it.
This is from 2016. Yeah, from 2016. So I got a Dreamcast. I got the Saturn. I got
Yeah.
the Wii U. Got
Yeah.
the Xbox 360, the PS1, Super Nintendo with the Super Nintendo unit that Sir Viraj hated. That's the same one.
The ugly one, yeah. The ugly SNES.
Plus the UFO machine. Oh,
This is
fun
very,
fact.
this is very
With
Yeah.
the Super
low,
Nintendo
pretty
with the Super
SNES.
Nintendo server ratch. So the UFO machine right there. I got it the same at the same time with the Super Nintendo.
Mm.
That
And the
UFO that
PlayStation 2 in
UFO
there.
thing
Yeah.
brings so much memory to me because 50% of the rental shops during my elementary days, I think that's what they were using on those rental shops for you to be able to play the video games, because the shop owners would not be able to afford the legitimate copy, so they would be
It's
using this
expensive.
to, to rent
It is
everything out, and
expensive.
everybody wanted to play Mortal Kombat 3 or Street Fighter 2 on the Super Famicom or the SNES, so they would be using this stuff. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be putting in floppy drives on it so that you could play those games.
There
It
were,
was
what,
that
there
thing.
were 60, 70 pound video games back then in the UK for Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
They were very expensive. Yeah, and Nintendo
If
64.
there's one console that I wasn't able to bring in here was the PSX. You know, the one
Oh,
with
The
yeah,
white one,
with
the
the
white
one with
one.
the DVR,
Mm.
the the white one,
that's a
which weighs
Goliath.
more than 15 kilograms. Yeah,
Oh,
so it's still in back. So that's still back in Manila,
yeah.
and unfortunately, when I came back to test it
Mm,
out, uh,
it's gone.
it went. It gave me the yellow light of death.
Oh, yeah. But you can get it
But
repaired.
yeah, but when I bought that in 2016, it was still working. But I don't
Yeah.
know. Maybe it's because it's
Well,
not. I'm
the
not
problem is
using
when
it
you
as
go.
much, or
No, but it's true. Yeah,
you
that's
know.
Yeah.
exactly it. If you don't play video game consoles, like the problem with the Wii U, for example, we discovered this
Mhm.
last year. For a lot of Wii U owners who have just switched off their Wii U's and don't keep it powered up, the NAND memory starts to rot. That's what happens. You end up with rot of the internal memory, and a lot of the people will turn it on. The whole OS will be corrupted, and you get some black screen. So these video games, for those of you who are keeping them in storage, power them up once in a while. Because unless it's like Mega Drive or Super Nintendo, which was just basically solid state. Anything with moving parts, you should actually start powering up every now
You
and then.
should
More
you
memory.
And
really
I think
should start. You really should testing them out every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah,
that's
and yeah.
that's actually the reason why I have my handhelds out right now here. Actually gonna be charging them, gonna be turning them on, so that they don't get that corrosion or the stagnant wear and
It's
tear that you
floating.
get when you
Oh,
stuck them up.
It was
speaking of which, Sir Drew, when you said you only got your handhelds with you, so this was still 2016. I also bought a Vita as well, a second-hand, a used Vita, just so that I have something to play while on the plane. It's an 8-hour flight here if you
Mm.
fly direct. From Manila to Sydney, it's an 8-hour flight, and I said I need something to pass the time, so I got myself a Vita for 5,500 pesos.
Mm.
That's a used game already, and it's already in Henkaku, so that it's already modded. So I was happy at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my that's my origin story. I mean, after that, when I started working here, the addiction got worse.
It
Yeah.
ballooned.
Got
It,
more,
worse.
more
it's
money, more problems.
it's like this fever. It takes over. I've got to have this. I've got to have this. I've got to have this in my collection. I need to have this. And
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah.
for me, it's a case
definitely
of
one of the things.
No, because what the one thing, Sir Gretch, is that especially here. So we're going now with the challenges. So
yeah.
one of my challenges in collecting anyway, and Sir Drew and Sir Gretch will know this. I collect JRPGs. I'm not one of those people who just collect video games for the sake of it. I know for a fact. I know my limitations. Okay. So one thing about about collecting is that you should set some parameters, more something a little bit more realistic, so that you don't go bankrupting yourself. That being
Mm.
said, I collect JRPGs, and I don't know why. God knows, only knows why the hell they cost so much if you're going to collect them.
They cost a lot because
Right?
there's a lot of game. There's a lot of game in there.
And yeah, I mean,
Um,
so I'm thinking, okay, so of course there's always supply and demand, all right.
Yep.
So if there's a lot of people demanding of playing JRPGs, and there's only little supply, it applies to anything actually. It applies to anything. If there's a demand
I
for something, and there should be, and there's only limited supply, of course the price is reasonably going to be high. That
I
unless of
have
course,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
an
Sergio.
input in regards to JRPG, Sergio, and
And I'm
Sir
like, okay,
Buraj
so
can correct me anytime in regards to this. And I think one of the reasons why JRPGs cost so much is because when we were playing it as kids, when we were playing these games, they were not as popular, so they had limited print runs. But there are so many people who actually enjoyed it, and people who discovered JRPG looking for the older JRPG games. Like I'm actually one of this guy, one of the people who discovered JRPGs later in my gaming life. Like I
Me
discovered
too.
it after I played the Final Fantasy Tactics. After I played that game, it was a rabbit hole for me, seeking and trying to get more of this JRPG goodness. But I was only actively collecting them when I got real adult money. So when I
Yeah.
was a kid, I was experiencing this, and I really enjoyed JRPGs. And when I got this adult money, that's when I started actively looking for these JRPGs, wherein they have very limited print runs, because during that time the demand for it was not as good, wherein nowadays every person actually has enough money to be able to actively search for this. And so that's why the prices went up, and the studios that would actually be supposedly be printing this are no longer in the scenario wherein they could be able to print these games because of licensing issues and
Mm.
what so and what for.
No, you're
So
absolutely
I think
right,
that's
Drew.
it.
You're 100% right. I mean, and then there's another little bit of let's add some more ingredients to this as well. And another ingredient is I'll give you an example because I'm a trader now and I sell video games now. So I did collect Game Boy Advance predominantly, and then DS, 3DS. So the handhelds became more my thing than the home consoles. I do have a home console release of. I have a really good collection of PS2 games and whatnot and all the others that came after it. But the handhelds was really my bread and butter, and it's really strange how the handheld version of the game can be more than the console version. I find that really interesting. How handheld games are just seem to be Game Boy and people are like, what the hell? How is Gunstar Heroes, on Mega Drive
Yeah.
expensive, but Gunstar Future Heroes on the Game Boy Advance, it's not almost as expensive, but it's quite expensive in proportion to the home console version it's a sequel of. Or how on earth is Comic Zone on the Game Boy Advance more expensive than the Mega Drive version? Stuff like this, because it was made in less numbers than the Mega Drive version, of that game. So you're absolutely right when you say with RPGs, JRPGs, it was an emerging market. If we look in Super Nintendo era, if you're looking at like those sort of SNES style JRPGs, not the high graphical ones like Final Fantasy VII, which sold in the millions. Yeah, I always saw Final Fantasy VII, but stuff like Tales of Fantasia on the GBA or Lunar Legend and things like that, they're more of the obscure RPGs. And what I tend to find is those people like Square, which is the staple for role playing games, and like it or lump it. I know they're not doing well recently, but a lot of people are starting to go away from Square and looking at Atlas and all these other companies that make
Atlas, Sega.
yeah, Sega. Yeah, so I actually sold. No lie, this is a true story. Okay, this happened in November last year. I had 3 Atlas JRPGs, and somebody spent £770 on just those 3 GBA games. And those games were exclusive in America, so we never had it here. So this is the other point. This is the other flavor. If it's exclusive in the
Which
United
games
States,
are those?
you can have it. Sorry.
Which games are those?
So Summon Night
Oh,
2, and Riviera the Promised Land. Okay, so
okay,
Summon Night,
Oh
understandable.
shoot! No, I totally get it. I love Riviera.
so there we go. So
I
there we
love
go.
Riviera. I played it on the PlayStation Portable.
Very rare in UK, and I sold. My mother went crazy because paid. I managed to get Riviera. I won it as an auction on eBay, and because not a lot of people were looking, I got
Damn.
£95, and I sold it for 170 at the same gaming market. So it was a good return. And as for Summon Night and Summon Night 2, they were in my collection, but I bought them years ago, and even then they were expensive at £60 and 100. And I imported one from South Africa and one from France, even though they were American games back then. And now I think I sold each of them for 300. So it's ridiculous how much people would pay for them, but because they were limited because they were only released in North America, and that was their only Western release. It never had a European release, so they were limited anyway. And we're in a region where those games aren't freely available. So, of course, I'm going to make a cash cow. So I've realized if I'm buying American exclusives and selling in Europe, I can make some good money and making strides. So that's something that I've started to try to look at, to be honest. I don't always win. And now people are realizing that these are really good games. So whenever I try looking for games whether they're at car boot sales or charity shops or even eBay itself, it's not always so easy now. It's not always so easy to get a good price and sell it at market. Buying it below market value and selling it at market value is very difficult these days. And what is market value? That in itself is an ambiguous issue as well. Market value is whatever the market dictates. You could always argue what eBay sold listing says on price charting, but then you also have to look at the condition of the product. And one of the things I trade on are good condition Game Boy Advance box games. Things that don't have any tears or ripped sticker labels and things like that. One of the questions I always ask myself as a collector and now as a reseller is, would I buy this game in this condition? How much is this game worth? Is it worth me selling it for this much? Put yourself. And one of the things
actually, that's one of the things that push the game's prices upwards. Is because influencers, TikTokers, and those who create these videos. I'm not gonna name those people because they are actually hyping. Hey, I found this at a Walmart clearance center, secret code or something. Then I'm gonna flip it. I made $100 out of it, and more people, especially during the pandemic era where everybody didn't really have any source of income, they went ahead and tried this. It worked for them, and now it's pushing the prices really upwards because there's now this great market for it.
The pandemic was a terrible thing, but it actually boosted the retro game industry. It actually inflated the price. So it's good or bad. You can look at it as bad for those people who just genuinely wanted to collect, because all these people that were sitting at home who had no hobbies, then went back to their old hobbies and they bought all these video games that are retro, and it pushed the price of them up. That's the thing. The problem with retro gaming is everybody thinks they're sitting on gold now, and there's games that are for no reason whatsoever. They're not worth that kind of money. It's ridiculous what people are doing. But it's funny because it's just funny. But going back to the whole topic at hand and where I was starting with this whole thing, which is the challenge of collecting that I find and selling is price. Price will always be the biggest challenge, always, and quality. Finding the game in good condition. Is it for me? Is obviously I'm a reseller, so I'm looking at it from a reseller's point of view. This, for example, I had to load. This is going to make you laugh, right? Many years ago, I bought this game called Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, which is one of the most, which has become quite an expensive game for the Game Boy Advance. And I paid about £60 for it on eBay. This is like years ago, 5 years ago plus, actually, we're talking. And even then, it was quite expensive. But it had a broken flap. The Game Boy Advance boxes have a flap that opens up, and there's two little flaps on the inside. One of the flaps, one of them was gone. Okay, but if you looked at it in its box protector, it's wonderful. And I sold this. I finally managed to sell it at the Oxford Gaming Market last month, and I put the price at £250 because of that. And that was a very low price for it, because it's over £300 on eBay now, way over £350. It goes for that much now, I think. And I thought, why not? Why not sell it? And then the kid was like looking at it and goes, £250. That flap is broken. It's because the flap is broken, I'm doing it for £250. In the end, I thought, let's just shift it, because I'm going to have difficulty selling this thing in the long term. So I took £10 off. He bought it for £240. But at the same time, the £240 is a lot of money. But that wasn't in the condition that I wanted. Would I have paid that money for that? Hell no. It's got a broken flap. He wouldn't have bought it. He definitely wouldn't have bought it. I had to think, let's cut my losses here. And I say cut my losses. £60 and £240. That's a good return on my investment 5 years ago. Better than any bank could give me. So I thought, let's just take the 240. And I've also got another copy in mint condition. Okay, so that wasn't the end of the world. I've still got it, but I've had my fun with Castlevania Aria of Sorrow. I can sell it, and if anyone wants it, if anyone's listening out there, it's £350. Anyway,
it's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's funny that Sir Viraj mentioned about the price, because it's always about pricing, especially with retro gaming. It's just so very much inflated right now, especially with the resellers out there. And I find buying it from actual resellers in actual game conventions a lot more cheaper than going to eBay. I mean, at times when if there's a convention here in Sydney, the first stalls that I usually try to find are, if there's anyone who's selling video games around here, and even if they do, even if there's even one, I go there. I find if I find something I remotely like, I check eBay first. Okay, let's see how much is how much
Yeah.
does it compare,
Yeah.
and then I
Well,
think about,
that's
okay,
it's
plus
good you
shipping, yada yada yada, taxes. Okay, this is still. I mean, it's right here in front of me. Might as well.
Yeah.
I'll just buy that, right?
yeah. It's
So
If it's
when when Sir Drew mentioned about Magic Knight Rare Earth, so up till this day, Magic Knight Rare Earth is still one of my top five most expensive shit. And Sir Raj will know this because he's a Sega guy. Sega Saturn is so damn expensive to collect for,
it's expensive
and
format.
I mean,
Neo Geo, off Neo Geo.
especially if it's localized, and if it's a JRPG, right? Out of my out of my top five, I got Panzer Dragoon, um, the Panzer Dragoon RPG, Magic Knight Rare, and Albert Odyssey. Till this day, still belongs to my top five in my collection.
Mm.
That
So
still really
is
costed me an arm and a leg. I mean, I don't. I mean, if I'm going to put it in little literal terms, I'm I'm basically a paraplegic right now.
well, I think Sega Saturn's a tough one to collect for, and even as a reseller, I was contemplating should I start selling for Saturn, but then I'm thinking this system sold 10 million worldwide. Most of the Saturns were sold in Japan. Whatever we got in Europe and America is what we got, and how many active Saturn gamers are there? Is it worth me selling for a format with such a small user base at such a high price? No, not really. I'll
Yeah,
be
I mean,
sitting on God knows how
yeah,
long.
because when we went to Japan in 2019, there's a lot of Saturn games that I'm like
Saturn was successful in
that
Japan.
that I like
there's
that. Yeah, I saw a lot of Saturn games in Japan, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I want to buy these, but I'm like, most of them are, oh, definitely they're in Japanese. So how am I even supposed to play them? I mean,
Yeah,
there are a few Japanese games out there that you can still enjoy even without the translation. But still,
yeah,
because I'm a JRPG guy, I
yeah.
need I need actual
yeah.
English in
Why
here.
don't you learn how to? Why don't you just learn Japanese?
It's much more cheaper, right? But still,
Just
it's so much of
learn
a hassle.
Japanese.
It's
I
too
know,
much of a hassle actually to
to learn the
learn
language.
the kanji and the language, because there's just so many nuances into the language, and even if you do understand it, you need to be able to actually get what they're trying to convey in the sentences, because one Japanese sentence could mean so many
Could be
different
in so
things.
many way in there.
Yes,
It's just based on interpretation, right?
yes, it's based on your
So
interpretation
because I
also.
talked to Sir Drew about this before, Sir Viraj, I said, okay, if I'm just doing it for JRPG purposes, I just need how to learn how to read and to listen. I don't have to speak it though.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But still,
Definitely.
but you still have to learn kanji, hiragana, katakana,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Katakana and hiragana is the easy part.
So that's
And those are the easy parts.
that's another challenge that I wasn't expecting, which is language. That's if you like JRPGs for you, that's a challenge, isn't it? Language.
That,
Learning.
that,
Be-
that's another challenge right
being
there.
There you go.
being a JRPG fan, a retro JRPG fan in the land of Japan is one of the worst combinations. Take it from me. And I want to buy so many of these things. It's just
Yeah.
that I would not able to play it, or I would need to have my phone Google translating
That's right.
everything, and it's
I
not
mean,
even 100% accurate. It's gonna, and I mean,
how can you?
If there's one saving grace, Viraj, okay, it's
Hmm.
just because I've been watching a lot of anime for the last 40 years. For the 40 years of my life, I've been watching a lot of anime, and every once in a while, I can catch what they're saying. So
Yeah,
even if I can't read it, I can still listen to what they're saying. And every
yeah.
once in a while, about 80% sure I can understand what's going on.
I find it
uh,
fascinating how Drew lives in Japan but doesn't understand Japanese fully or whatever. How can you live in a country and not speak the
nah,
language? What's wrong with you?
I have this talent of saying wakata, like that. You just need to have this
Aso.
convincing look in your face. Soka, wakarimashita. Like just do that. You're gonna survive here for a
Just
lifetime.
nod. Just nod politely.
get an
Yeah,
academy.
not and one thing I do like about Japanese people is they are very animated with their facial expressions, and when they're talking to you, not only are they very animated with their facials, they are also doing this
They have a
semi
lot of body
sign
language.
language
Yeah,
thing.
they have a lot
Yeah,
of body
yeah,
language.
there's a lot of body language that they do, and they are so used to talking to foreigners that
Mm.
you don't really need to understand Japanese 100%. Maybe just 2%. 2% of the language is enough for you to go in your daily
Actually, it's a
lives.
challenge for them to talk in English, though, Sir Viraj.
Yeah,
I know it is. I mean,
But
I
totally.
it's
work,
not just us trying to
yeah.
Yeah.
understand Japanese.
As you
It's the
guys know,
Japanese people trying to understand English.
as you guys know, I drive trains in the city of London. But before I worked in a train station that was linked to the airport. So I dealt with the world. The world comes to London to tour it, and I would help sell tickets for the trains. And whenever somebody had problems with languages or I didn't understand it, fortunately the ticket machine has language support. So if I say, "What are you from Japan?" Okay, and I'll just click Japan. I'll just leave them alone on the machine because it would do it all for me. Thank God for that, because it was very difficult dealing with Japanese and Chinese people. It's very difficult because our languages are even our written language is totally different, and yeah, that is a barrier when playing their video games, as we've discussed
It's
here.
the
And
language, right?
Just,
When
I
we
I'm
so
I'm just gonna share
go,
this
go.
thing.
oh,
One thing. I might forget this as we are talking. One funny thing that happens here in Japan is Japanese people would be speaking in Japanese. Then there are certain nationalities that don't give a regarding if they could speak the language or not. So you would have two people talking in in Spanish and speaking in Portuguese and speaking in Japanese without them speaking in a language that the other
The
person
local.
is gonna understand, and they would be able to do their they would be able to understand all the thing that they're trying to convey,
mm,
and they did not have any common language
mm,
in their verbal exchange, and it's quite fascinating to see it. And that's the
yeah,
difference between Filipinos and other nationalities, because other nationalities does not care if the one they're speaking to does not understand their language. They're gonna speak in their language anyway.
yeah,
But Filipinos, you're gonna see Filipinos, we're gonna try our best to be
yeah.
able to convey our whatever it is we're trying to convey in the language that we are the language of the one we're speaking with. But other nationalities, that they don't give a
Yeah.
they just gotta go and speak in their
In
own language, and
so
okay.
in regarding with challenges with the language, Sir Viraj, and I mentioned this before when we did our game hunting in Japan episode.
Mm,
So just so Viraj will know. So when I was in Japan in Akihabara, just looking for more, because I figured, okay, if I'm collecting anyway, because I have three game series in mind. Tales series,
yeah.
just to collect the things that I don't have.
Yes.
The Japanese exclusive anyway. The Tales of Rebirth and Tales of Destiny 2, and then the Trail series, Trails of the Sky, Trails of Azure, the ones that I don't have,
Okay.
and then your Star Ocean, because I was planning to buy Star Ocean, the first the Super Famicom one,
Mhm.
the first Star Ocean. Oh, and Tales of Fantasia, the Super Nintendo one. So I have a few games in mind. So
Have
what
you
I
got the
did,
Star
right?
Ocean on the Game
Yeah,
Boy Color? You know, there's a Star Ocean on the Game Boy Color.
that's the
Yeah.
thing. I couldn't find. No, I mean, I tried to find it. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it for some reason.
Okay.
Maybe I was looking for. Maybe I was looking at the wrong
Which
places.
I'll
Tales
see
of
if I can.
Fantasia
the
for the Game Boy
Famicom
Advance.
one, the Super
See if I
Famicom
can
one?
get one.
For Advance, Game Boy Advance.
No, no, I'm talking about
Tales of
Star. Are you
Fantasia.
talking about Star
Ah,
Ocean?
the Game Boy Advance.
Are
Mm.
you talking about Star Ocean for the
So
Game Boy Color? Or what are you talking about?
Star Ocean, the first one is the Super Famicom.
Yeah.
It was never ported into the Game Boy Advance. However,
No, there
so
wasn't.
what I
So
did was
Star
I
Ocean.
tried to. So what I did was, rather than searching the cover game per game, I just had to remember what the Japanese characters are
Mm.
on the side of the sleeve,
Mm.
and if I remember at
Mm-hmm.
least three or four characters, that might be the game I was looking for. because I don't
Yeah.
have the time to go shelf by shelf,
Mm.
shop per shop.
It
So
does. It
that's
does.
how I did it. So the language thing is always it's also a challenge for me as a collector anyway.
Mm. Mm.
Actually, that's the one of the things that people complain about Japanese copies or Japanese video games is the spines, is because it's written in katakana and in hiragana and sometimes in kanji. So it would be a hard time for you to be able to search for the game you're trying to search for based on the spines alone. But one thing that I gotten used to with, since I mainly collect for the Japanese copies anyway, is that I stack them by their rating because they have colored ratings underneath. And so A is for the family friendly things, and B, and it goes all the way to to say or said
Z,
based on
Z.
their language anyway. And that's how I find it. Even my son who reads who could read kanji and hiragana katakana, he has trouble finding a game that is trying to find in our small library at the back here, because when he needs to switch a game, he comes here and that where is this game? And I'm the one who could show him, because I'm the one who stuck them there. And I would just basically tell him, look for the C rating. It's in the C rating, or looking for Mario, it's in the A or something. And
Mm.
it looks the same and based on the spine alone, and that's one of the things truly frustrating. So when they put the spine and they put in the Romanji or the English alphabet on there, that's a huge plus for us because it's easier to find. But if you only have a few Japanese copies, it's not really that much of a bother. But if you're trying to find something in a game shop like Sergio, it's gonna be quite a challenge. Unless it's for the Dreamcast, because the Dreamcast has an English alternate spine on the other side. So that's what they usually display on the
Mm.
retro corners in Akihabara. So that's way easier to collect for. And Dreamcast games are arcade games, so you don't really need the language stop on there unless you're trying to find
Yes.
Eternal Arcadia or that Matrix or something. That's well, they are cheaper on the Japanese side, but of course we won't be able to play them still. But
Mm.
luckily for
I
Sega,
do
they
have a
have.
question about that actually, and you might have the a possible answer to this. So if it's more expensive hiring people just to localize it, or at least just to have an English dubbing, the easy I mean the easier, more realistic approach would be, just adding some English subtext in there. Not all
Mm.
Japanese games do that though, so
No.
why not just do
Yeah,
that all the time?
Oh, it's
I think it's license, not licensing per se, but it's more like the ratings, the different rating standards of the country. So when something is censored in the West and it's not censored here in Japan, that's
mm.
one of the reasons why they have different game versions. It's based on the ratings. Like
See, that's
Stellar
another
Blade
challenge
is
right there,
rated.
censorship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes, censorship.
here in Australia, we I think we get like 10% of the good stuff coming from coming from Japan and
Mm.
America. Like I need to import some shit,
Yeah.
and of course I don't know, and of course I don't know about the PAL region out there. I mean, I'm one of the PAL regions as well. So Viraj might know this as well. He knows this more than I do.
Mm.
We get the shaft regarding with
Dude,
game releases.
Australia is the worst place in the world to buy video games because it's so expensive and it's so hard to get because you have a population which is there is a degree of demand, but because of where it's located geographically, and because of the systems that they use there as well is a bit different as well. So the PAL, also Australia PAL, if we're talking retro games, that he's looking at Europe, isn't he? Because that's the versions that they have. That's their version, but there's just not enough of them printed in Australia. And also, the ones that are printed are at a premium. They're more expensive. So I really do feel for the Australians when it comes to video games because they are more expensive and they're harder to find. It's just the way it is for Australia. It's just the worst. That's why it's just one of those things. But it's not the end of the world because you get people like me who are happy to facilitate some people in Australia.
I mean, Sir Drew. I'm in talks at the moment with Sir Raj regarding a few games that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
So we have we already have reached an agreement on how I'm going to pay for those.
Yeah.
But that's the
And
thing.
In
But that's
fairness,
the
they're
thing.
actually
It's
to
a
defend myself.
it's a geopolitical. Yeah. So that's one of the challenges. To me anyway, is that it's not. It's. I mean, if it's not the censorship, most likely it's the censorship that's really the reason why we're not really getting a lot of the good ones, because every once in a while, okay, because not all video games out there are getting like an actual trailer. Not unless you watch, the Xbox showcase, the PlayStation showcase, or the Nintendo showcase. You won't know what games are coming out,
Yeah.
right? Even with what's the game that I'm looking for? That we're looking for, Metaphor, right?
Mm.
Or I wouldn't even know Metaphor is a thing unless I watch the Xbox press release,
Yeah, the Xbox
right?
showcase.
So the so so they showed the trailer for Metaphor there at first, and I thought that, oh, it's gonna be an Xbox exclusive. Turns out no, it's multi-platform. Thank God, I won't have to buy an Xbox X.
That
but
actually,
still,
you
but
touched
still,
on a very interesting point.
that's the thing. So that means if if I don't search for the games that's going to come out on this calendar year, then that means I won't even know. I have to look online. Like for example,
But
I didn't know there was Sir Drew might know this, Blue Reflection for the PlayStation 4. I
mm,
didn't know. So when I first saw what on my YouTube and my Facebook feed, someone's asked about Blue Reflection, and I'm like, oh, this is something that I should be playing. And I'm like, how come I didn't know about this? Turns out
Mm.
it was never released here in Australia,
So
and
the
it's on a
challenge for you,
PlayStation 4.
really?
again, yeah, I think that's another challenge for Sir Joe, because it's hard to find the games that he wants released in his region. Another challenge that I just thought about, since you mentioned multi-format releases. Do you remember? And I remember, and this is the one that always gets me. There was this wonderful game called Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast that we all remember, and it also had a sequel called Soul Calibur 2, and that was multi-format, PS2,
So
Xbox, and GameCube.
Calibur.
Soul Calibur 2.
Soul
Now,
Calibur, Soul Edge.
and then there was the case of, well, which version do I get? Because it's the same game.
Yeah.
But then you realize what they did, which was very clever. Each version of that game had its own exclusive character for every format. So obviously, Cube had Link in. There's Link. You had
Link.
Spawn, the Xbox one,
Darth
and he
Vader.
actually he actually was in on the PS2 one. So you had an exclusive character. So God, I've got to buy all three if I want to experience that game to its fullest, to play every bloody character.
Right.
And I have all three bloody consoles. It's ridiculous. You can go crazy doing that. In my opinion,
Oh, if we're going to talk about challenges, fucking region locking. What the hell?
region locking,
Yeah.
yeah, region exclusive. The 3DS, I love the DS, but the 3DS was region locked. You had to hack it to unlock it.
Yes.
I was like, that was the most stupid thing Nintendo
Stupidest
did.
thing.
Why did they make the 3DS region locked? Why? There were so many great Sega games that I could have got that were locked to Japan, like the Sega 3 Ages.
Hang on. So we're talking about region locking here. So region locking was a thing back on the NES,
Yeah.
NES and Master System.
Mega
Region
Drive,
locking on the 16-bit,
yeah.
I guess, with the
Keep
SNES,
upgrading.
Super Famicom, and Mega
Yeah, but
Drive Genesis.
it wasn't region
And then
locking.
region locking on the PlayStation 1, region
You
locking on
were-
the Dreamcast, region locking with PS2.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason for that is
That's
because
Saturn.
I think back then they had obviously PAL and NTS. Yeah, they had different systems. Okay, and that's why it was there. Obviously, there's a number of reasons why region locking is a barrier and why it was there. Price discrimination being one of them. Okay, and that's the same with DVDs. There's different regions of discs, and it's to do with the fact that they want to control their release dates for every region, and they want to control the money that's coming in for every region as well. So that's two. And also the third one, which is a technical one, and this is the real barrier, which is games in the PAL regions, well, let's say Mega Drive and Super Nintendo area, and even in PlayStation, we say we have 50 hertz here. We have PAL 50 hertz
Yeah,
systems.
PAL Secom and NTSC.
PAL CCAM and CCAM systems, and NTSC in
CCAM.
America. Yeah, so we had in UK the benefit of PAL was you had more resolution on our television sets. We had more resolution. We had a bigger picture.
Yeah, about that. I mean, the PAL regions never really. So you guys never intended to, get on with the program and join us with the join us in NTSC.
Well, it's
You still stuck with the PAL even till now.
PAL was the better system for television. It's a better system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really, it's better because you didn't have a clearer picture than we had. It was a clearer picture because the engineers would say, because it's true, TV engineers would get really annoyed with NTSC because they'd say NTSC stands for never the same color because it was just wavy lines. Yeah, with PAL, okay, we had the bigger resolution, perfect at last. That's what PAL stood for. Okay, the only
perfect at last.
Perfect.
But you guys had 10 hertz slower
what
though.
What did CCAM stand for?
The benefit was the 60 hertz. It ran at a faster frame rate, and a lot of the games back then were optimized for the NTSC system. Okay, and I agree with PlayStation. Even though it had a smaller resolution, even though you can benefit from a big one, the game just ran too slow. I remember playing Spyro, and it was just a very slow game. But when you play the NTSC version, it feels normal. With the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, it varies from game to game. In fact, sometimes I actually like the PAL system because the music would run at a nice slow pace, a chill pace, rather than a faster one. And in some of these games, and also some of these games of that era were so unforgiving, you want it to run slower. So to some extent, PAL could be better, but NTSC, that is the format that these games were formatted at. I remember playing
the universal standard is still NTSC, guys.
Well, no, it's not.
I think that's the one of the main reasons why some people are such Region 1 purists is because when they tried to play a PAL region game, they tried it on an NTSC TV. It won't play. It would have this
remember that. So Brett will know this. Remember that debacle with the PlayStation 1 Mini. Because they in regarding with the Tekken that they used the Tekken PAL release for that, and people were complaining, how come this is so slow?
Yeah, I think that was the most stupid thing they did. That was the most stupid thing they did, and I will say, with PlayStation, I'm all for NTSC. I think the games just need to, because it's 3D, and you're playing a 3D game, it just runs too slow on PAL, and you notice it. With the 2D games, it's up in the air with me. And it's whatever you grew up with, you're going to favor. You're used to that frame rate and the way that it played. Another thing I want to just put out there, since we mentioned PAL and NTSC, and this is the bit that really bothers me as a reseller, and this is a challenge for me as a reseller, not necessarily a collector, but also that too. Back when the Game Boy Advance, and this is the Game Boy Advance format we're talking about now, PAL and NTSC, Europe and America, there is no difference. The games will run on whatever Game Boy Advance or DS you have. Okay, so why the prejudice? I tell you something. I get really annoyed. Last November, I had Street Fighter 3 Alpha on the Game Boy Advance. I was selling that. Street Fighter Alpha 3, I think that's what it's called anyway. So I had that game, and it was the NTSC version. And someone was looking at it and goes, I'd buy it if it was the European one. I thought, goodness sakes, it makes no difference. Okay, are you that offended by that ERSB rating on the box? I mean, are you one of those people? The box art is exactly identical.
About that. I mean, so question about that. So there are people out there. In London, if they see the ESRB, it's a deal breaker.
It can be, yeah, because I tell you, and if it's on a system that's multi-region, that rating means nothing. The games will run. Okay, but some people are just really
even if the functionality is relatively the same.
Even if it's identical,
in the Philippines, it's also
they get upset. And I'll tell you why. This is another reason.
The opposite.
Another reason I want to say as well is, and this is what I've done, and in some cases I get it because the PAL version is a bit more expensive, and I do put my prices up on the PAL one. I'll tell you why. The instruction manuals are thicker because of all the different languages.
Yep.
Okay? So
I have to know that.
Yeah, it has French, Spanish, and
Italian, German. Yeah.
The ROMs themselves. For those who looked at, if you have a Game Boy Advance ROM collection and you look at the USA one and the Europe one, you'll notice that in brackets next to the ROM bracket, it tells you all the languages it will play in. So, for example, Final Fantasy IV Advance, the European game is a better one than the American one because the American one will just play in English. in Europe, we will support all the different languages, so you can play the game in French, German, Spanish. It's there. So the value of that game is bigger because it plays to a bigger market, not just the Western, English-speaking world, but also the Hispanic world. And Spain is actually the most widespread language in the world, to be fair. English and French. So if you can tap a Spanish region as well as an English one, you have that, and you can put the price up. And that's what I do on my PAL versions. And because of that whole Street Fighter incident I had, I acquired the PAL version. And guess what I've done? I've put the price up. So you PAL people that are so purist, are so finicky about it, you can pay the PAL price. And they don't want to pay the price. They want the NTSC price. It's cheaper for the advance. But the PAL version, it drives me nuts. But I do it just to make them buy the NTSC version because they can speak English in this country. What's the problem? If you speak English, what is this? And it's a fighting game. You don't need another language. They're not going to say Hadouken in English, are they?
So just in case,
did
you did you sell it on the NTSC price though?
No, I haven't sold one copy yet. But I mean, that's not the point. The point is, whoever's going to buy it will have to buy the. Well, do you know what it is? I'm at the point now where, and you tell me, you can advise me, guys. I haven't put both of them on my shelf yet. I just put the NTSC one out. And if somebody says that, I say, I do have the PAL one. It's going to cost you £10 more, though. That's what I'll say to them. And that's it. £60 for a PAL one or $50 for an NTSC
in the
one.
Philippines, they would pay more for the NTSC version than the
We
PAL
pay
version.
more for the NTSC.
There's
This is it. Maybe
there's a lot of NTSC purists in the Philippines.
It's the Philippines. I'm grateful English here.
In the Philippines, we pay a lot for NTSC games, Sir Viraj. Actually, if you're and I know this because during the during the heyday of the PlayStation 3, we get Region 1 and Region 3 games, and for the same game, like for example, this was I remember Star Ocean: The Last Hope. For the PlayStation 3, there's the Region 1 and there's the Region 3 release. Region 3 release will be the Asian version, but there's still some English in there. The NTSC Star Ocean Last Hope will cost you like 500 pesos more compared to the Region 3 one, which is basically the same game, which is basically the same language, but it's because of the ASRB rating right there, it costs a little bit more.
But PAL is more. I suppose it's dependent on region. Now, maybe I should do some business with some of you guys in the Philippines with some of the NTSC. I don't want to use the word NTSC. Let's say American releases because NTSC and PAL don't exist on hand.
Yeah, the North American release, right? And I'm like, and personally, I don't really mind getting the PAL release if it's the game that's more available to me. Honestly, I don't care as long as there's an English support. I'm good.
This is it.
Really.
So I think the deal that I'm doing with
I share the same sentiments with Sergio.
Sorry,
I share the same sentiments with Sergio, and actually getting back into the topic we are discussing in regarding collecting video games is that's actually one of the main reasons why this collection of mine blew into this to this proportion is because I don't really care about the region, or I don't really care about whatever it is you are being nitpicky about. All I care is if I get to play a game in a certain language that I understand, which in this case it's English, because there's no pure Filipino video game that I know of in existence as of the moment. Anyway, so that alone, that this is one of my greatest gripes with Nintendo. They only really fully dip into the full English multi-language support in the Switch era. They dabbled on it in the Super Nintendo, like for the Metroid.
They didn't do it with the Wii. They didn't do it with the Wii U.
No,
but
Switch.
I think they've learned
only the Switch. They only embraced it with the Switch, and I could count the number of games that actually have English support for the retro side. Below the Switch, Wii U and below, you could count them in your fingers. I know of Metroid. I know of what else? I think Metroid Fusion, and then just really selective.
I remember Sir Ray when he got his Wii U, and Sir Ray was looking for Just Dance games for the Wii U, and there's a lot of that here. In our CEX, and I'm like, Survey, you need to understand Wii U is region lock. You need to mod it first before I can send the games to you. Otherwise, it won't play.
Yes.
You didn't know that.
Yeah, it's knowing as well, and that can be but yeah. So yeah, we are. Region can be a barrier for sure. With playing the video games, the language is part of that as well, and it also affects people collecting it. I mean, and I'm with you, Mr. Drew. I mean, in all fairness, the way I see it is, as long as the game is complete in box as a collector, so you got the box, you got the manual, you got the cartridge, or the disc, or whatever it is, the media is, I think that should be enough. I think.
Do you find it annoying if there's no manual in there?
Oh, it bothers me. It bothers me.
It bothers
For a
me,
collector.
but
I mean, does it really find it annoying if there's no manual?
How many people read the
It
bloody manual?
depends.
That's the question. How many of them are reading it?
actually depends. How much did you get the game for?
This is it. I
If
mean,
you
I've
got
got
it for
2 copies. I've got 2 copies. One game's got a manual that I'm selling, and one doesn't. And this is the difference in price. The game's called Mega Man ZX Advent, and it's for the DS.
Ah,
This is
yeah.
another challenge. This is another problem or challenge, ladies and
I have
gentlemen.
one that doesn't have a manual. I'm selling that for £50 because it's still quite sought after. The one that
No
does have
manual.
a manual is £80. So if you want one with a manual, it's £80. If you want one without a manual, it's £50, or maybe even less if you want to haggle me. But it's a huge price disparity for something boxed and complete. And not just that, even some people are just happy buying the cartridges. There's a market just for that. If the game is missing the box, there's one guy, lovely guy, he's a YouTuber. He's quit his YouTube channel. His name's Sega Head, lovely channel. And I met him. He's come to the market, and he goes, "You know what, Viraj, I can't afford your games." And this goes to price being a barrier. But he goes, "If you just had cartridges on their own, I'll be able to afford it more, because it's like £20-30 just for a game. It's more than double that if you want it complete in box, and I can't do that. I can't justify that purchase." I'm like, all right, then move on. Because this is the way my business is. I like to sell it the way it was originally. It came with the box, it came with the manual. That's what I do. If you want to buy that tat, there's about another 20 tables at the gaming market selling that, and there's enough people that do it, and they do well selling cartridges. I like to sell for the collectors and people who want it originally. So people say I'm very middle class in what I'm selling, but I'm just selling what the games are, and that's the price. Like it or lump it, that's the way it is. So yes, price is a barrier for me when I sell my video games. But in all fairness, I do have complete in box Nintendo DS games. It's only the Game Boy which is expensive in that regard. I got complete in box Nintendo DS games for £15 going upwards. It's whatever you can afford. And in all fairness, I would say people going about how the retro video game market is very expensive and price is a barrier. There are a lot of amazing, cheap retro video games out there that you can get complete in box. And there's something for everyone if you just look hard enough. There are games that I didn't even know existed on the system, and you can get them really cheap. And that's what I've started to stock, like the Bomberman games on the DS. You can get for £15, cheap. You can't really go wrong with that. Bomberman Touch is cheap. It's a great game. Mario Kart DS you can get for £15. That's a Mario Kart game. You can get so many great games cheap. Even New Super Mario Brothers DS, Mario 64 DS. If you're new to a system, you can still get a lot of great games on a system, staple games on the system for the DS quite cheap. But again, it depends on the format you're collecting for. And I'll always remember what you said,
Depends
Joe.
on the format, depends on the title that you're collecting for.
Expensive, Sir Joe. And I remember him saying, it's expensive. I remember him saying when I did my Game Boy Advance episode, he said, it's expensive in that, exactly like that.
Expensive shit.
You make your with it. You're not going to
But-
buy Saturn and cry about expensive Saturn games. You can afford it. You're rich if you're buying a Saturn and collecting Saturn games. You want to afford
If
it.
I
you're
would like
collecting
to,
for Saturn,
oh.
Neo Geo, you're rich.
the Neo Geo. No, that's expensive as well, right?
That's
Oh,
Yeah.
so if we're going to talk about if we're going to so if there's something I would like to share in regarding with collecting, region, and language. Xbox 360, okay.
Okay.
Xbox 360, very limited JRPGs in there. All right, and the Xbox 360 is also notorious for being region locked as well. And then I remember I got the only reason I got in the Xbox 360 so I could play Tales of Vesperia. And in the Philippines, we got the Asian version, Sir Drew. We got the Asian version. So I saw Tales of Vesperia on our Data Blitz and TSC US, of course, and I bought that. Luckily, the Xbox unit was able to play that.
Mm.
Not until when I started buying other games for it, then I realized, oh, the game is not working for one game was the Enchanted Arms. Enchanted Arms is
Ah,
playing that. It was NTSC US as well. Played it
Mm.
on my Xbox 360. It wasn't working, and then I said, oh, so I tried returning that shit to
Mm.
the seller. I'm like, oh no, the game is working. Sir, did you know that your Xbox 360 is region locked? I didn't know that. So I had
Yeah.
to go online, and then I saw all of the compatibility issues of all. So apparently,
Mm.
they released like a complete list of all of the Xbox 360 games
Mm.
and which region will work on which console. And
Mm.
then that's the time I realized that, oh shit. So unless I modify my Xbox 360, I won't be able
Yeah.
to play
I
half
mean,
as much.
the great
So
thing
what?
is we can now modify systems to unlock the regions. Now, that's a really good thing.
Yeah.
Here
So
we got someone in the comment section saying to
yeah.
me, was it Cogen Gutierrez? He's saying to me, region doesn't matter as long as you can play the game. The cheaper, the better. Love the boxing manuals. Team physical all the way. OG gamer.
OG gamer.
I like this guy. I like this guy.
So,
Yeah.
and so
I
what I
love that
did,
guy.
I love the
Yeah, I
guy.
love this guy.
So what I did, Sir Viraj. Okay, so with the Xbox 360, you only got like less than 10 games in there,
Mm.
exclusives. You got your Blue Dragon, Lost Odyssey,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
I'm a Blue Dragon also.
Infinite, Unlimited, and
Infinite Discovery.
Unlimited in Undiscovery, The Last Remnant,
Well,
and Trustable. What is that one? Eternal Sonata,
mm.
right there. So for and half of those games are not working with my Xbox with my Asian Xbox 360. So what I did, so apparently Xbox released those. Those titles released those Japan only games that have the ego, the English
Ah,
subtitle
the
in there.
Ego Kanji.
So all of those. So apparently, Eternal Sonata has a version of that. Ooh, Magna Carta.
Ah, yeah.
Magna Carta 2
True.
has that. Last Remnant has that version, and Unlimited Undiscovery or also has that. So those four games. Oh, and Blue Dragon also has those four. So those five has those games, right? Uh, those are the games that can be played on an Asian console, but also has the English support. Very difficult to look for.
Mm.
I had to go to a Singapore website just to search for those games. And for the Magna Carta 2, the Asian version with English support, I found it someone in Canada selling it for just making sure my wife is not listening.
Yes.
He was selling it for a very expensive price, like 200.
I
Like,
can't even say how much it was.
I
It's
cannot
so
even say it out loud.
expensive. It was
He's selling
expensive.
it for Canadian for an undisclosed amount Canadian dollars.
It was in the hundreds.
And this is for a Magna Carta 2
It was in the
Xbox
hundreds.
360 Asian version with English support.
Yeah.
And he's the only one who is selling, and he was the only one that I found online who is selling that shit.
Mm.
So, and that's the thing. So this is where the compulsion
Hmm.
is starting to punch you.
Yes.
Should you get the game for the asking price? Long story short, I bought that shit.
Yeah, but you know what? And this is another
You
thing.
remind me, I just saw The Last Rebellion on Mercari the other days, selling it for 6,000 yen, and I'm like, nah. Because for me, this is one of the things that I love about myself is that if there's something I don't have in my collection and it's for a retro game, and it's something that is not really here's my 1 meter for it, here's the price for it, I'm like, it's just like I'm not getting it, and
Well,
I gonna
that's
accept that
really
I'm
good
not
because
gonna get it now.
that's really good because that means you don't suffer from FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and that is a challenge for so many people.
No,
Even
no, no.
FOMO is yeah, he gets it, I get it. You don't have FOMO,
Yeah,
so that's a good thing. But a lot of
I
people suffer from fear of missing out, I want to play this game. Oh, will I ever find it in this condition ever again for this quality or this much
Yeah.
money? And even now, I just bought a video game while this was going on eBay. I
It's a
binge
hard habit to kick.
I
That's
had to
for
buy
sure.
it because I knew I wouldn't be able to get it in this condition and at that price. So the game was called Lost Vikings for the Game Boy Advance. I just paid £30 for it. But the fact of the matter is that that's the retail price it came out at. But I know Lost Vikings has a lot of sentiment for a lot of people in the UK because it was on the Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, and the GBA port is really good. So I know that it's something that I can buy. And then another aspect I look at, and this is, I think we're moving off the subject now of challenges. This is like, the real crux of it in terms of the contemporary setting where I'm at, which is,
Yeah.
it's an investment for me. It's an investment. It's a long-term
Yeah.
investment. A lot of these games that
I'm
I collected and looked after are investment. And one day I want to liquidate, and I'm actually in the process of liquidating not only my existing Game Boy Advance collection and other games, but also buying games, investing in them in the short term and flipping them for more money because I know I can get them below market rate and flip it and make more money. And that's something that I
and
enjoy doing.
here's actually the thing, and I totally respect that. Not only is it a hustle, but it is also a hobby. The way you challenge yourself to be able to profit for something from something that you love, and that's
Yeah.
a really awesome way to collect and to share this. You're not only trying to make a profit out of it, but you're
Mm.
also trying to share these
Facilitate.
acquisitions with people who are
Yeah.
actually really
Yeah.
searching for this, and it's gonna be a better home for the game because you know
Correct.
that they're either gonna be showing it, showcasing it, they're gonna be taking either
Mhm.
pictures of it or they're actually gonna be playing it. So it's a win-win situation. So that's
Correct. I mean,
where we actually where I actually treat myself as one of those people. It's just that I'm a really frugal guy when it comes to collecting.
that's
I
great.
want to have a huge collection. I don't want to pay for the
Yeah.
for the premium. So
Yeah.
what I do is I actually put in more physical effort because I'm
Yes.
already doing the physical labor to get my money from work. So
That's
what I
correct.
do is go and go since I'm in Japan, I take a full
You're lucky you're in
full
Japan
I
because Japan, I'll tell you
yeah,
something. Japan is where it's actually quite affordable to collect. I look at the prices there compared
yeah,
to. It's actually so affordable to collect retro games in Japan, and the Japanese people, goodness me, they're not savages like they're here in the UK. They look after their boxes. They look after their games. It's in good
yeah,
condition.
that's,
I'm jealous of you in that
that's
regard.
true.
Good people that look after games. Whenever I find a Game Boy Advance game and I see it's a bit tatty, what I have to do is I make sure I have to get an eye in. This is what I do to put the game back to normal. I get my father to do it. He opens the box. No lie, if he's got a bit of a crease there, he gets a bit of paper, puts it on top of the box once he's opened it up. Yeah, he gets an iron and he puts it to flatten it. And then when he puts it back together again, it looks just like it was when it originally came out because he's cleaned up all the moisture that was trapped in the cardboard. That's all he's done. So it's back to the way it was, rigid, and he rebuilds it. And you're like, oh, wow, that looks like it was in 2003 or thereabouts. There might be an odd crease there and there. You know when to get out, but it's really good. So sometimes it's about maintenance. And another thing I do is I invest in box protectors, which are these little plastic acrylics that I put the Game Boy Advance games in there to maintain the shape and protect them. And it's about 80 pence to a pound. But it shows that as a collector, I value my things. And when I sell it on my table, I want people to value my stock and pay because I'm asking a small
Yeah,
premium. At least I've got it in good
they're
condition.
gonna pay premium when they know that the seller is taking care of the product before
Yeah,
they purchase it. They're gonna be more inclined to pay more for
that's
those
correct.
items because hey, if I'm me, one of the things I actually look for when I go to book ops, when I go to the recycle areas is I'm actually looking for the things with minimal damages
That's
because
correct.
I get it for cheaper. Because
That's correct.
I, as a collector, want to have something with a little bit of personality that I'm gonna play. I'm gonna display it if the spine is okay. It has a little bit of grease. I don't
Yeah,
really mind because this is a personal thing for me. I'm not here to and that's why when other people actually praise the stuff that I have, I'm not downplaying it. I'm more on it's because I don't really care about their monetary value after I purchase something. When I
oh,
purchase it, I mostly purchase it for how much or something that I'm not gonna break the bank with. So if the price of something I already own goes up, I'm most probably not gonna notice it because I don't really, I'm not really, unless
It,
I'm gonna be selling it. If I'm gonna be selling it, then I would be researching how much
yeah,
it's going for.
yeah,
And this is one of the things that most people would say it's an investment and something like that for the future. And
yes,
honestly, video games are one of the worst things that you could collect for investment because first of all, they could get broken. Second of all, it's a high maintenance thing. I spend a lot of
and
money on the humidifiers, protectors,
not all
whatever.
video games, and not all video games go up in price. Some, a lot of them do go down.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm,
And that's the reason why this bloated is because most of those games that I have are the ones that went down in price because
yeah,
they over printed these things and there's such a huge
yes,
amount of this
tremendous.
in circulation. And
Yeah,
the ones that are really up there in price are the ones that I don't have. So and
yeah.
also one
Or
of the points
Nintendo.
why my
Nintendo used
one of
their
the
value.
points why my collection blew and grew into this is because since I'm mainly collecting Japanese video games with full English language support, it's not really that many of those things. And in it only it started they only started integrating it in the Switch. For the PlayStation, we're a little bit more luckier. It started with the PlayStation 3 and also started with the Xbox 360. So anything below that, more retro than that, I usually only buy the common stuff like the fighting games, racing
Mm,
games. I don't buy shoot 'em ups because they are expensive even for the Japanese
mm,
copies. So the beat 'em ups and I would buy the Switch versions, the PlayStation 4 versions,
mm,
and those things would be the ones that I would put in my collection because I have more access to them. There's
mm,
it's easier to play than the retro stuff because you could pop it in on your PlayStation 5 for a PlayStation 4 game. For an Xbox game, hey, you could pop in
mm,
an Xbox OG game and it would play on the Series X, so no problem there. That's why I like the remasters. I'm a pro remaster guy. I'm a pro remake guy because those
mm.
are the things that I could not afford before. They are now available in the current platform for a price I don't really mind shelling out
For
after
some
the release
remakes,
date
I don't like. I think
1 year or two. Yeah,
sometimes
so
remakes
I'm,
are broken. So I like the originals a bit more than remakes typically. But you know what? Sometimes remakes can be just as good as the original. So it depends. It's subjective on that one. Julian
it
has made an interesting point. He goes, agree video games and toys are the worst investments. They require effort and capital to preserve their value. I mean, I agree to I think you're not wrong, but you're also not right in the sense that, I think I have a lot of things here around this room. And I strategically bought them because I knew they'd go up in value because they're limited editions or they're collector's editions. So for Switch, I don't just collect a Switch game. If I know it's a collectible edition, I know that will keep its value and go up, things like that. So, for example, I bought the special edition of Link's Awakening on the DS, which has a lovely art book and everything. I paid about
oh, I also have that
yeah,
one.
I
I
paid
also have that.
£70 for it, and I sold it at £100 at the Oxford Gaming Market. So I made 30% more than what I paid. And it's only been at my house for about 2 years. So I suppose in that
But
regard, you're again, you're not wrong, but you're also not right. It depends on what you're buying. Now with Nintendo and special editions, you can make good money, and also with retro, it depends on what you're buying and if you know things. If you know it's going to go up, obscure JRPGs, so Joe knows about them. There's stuff that will skyrocket in value because people, like you just said, Drew, there were obscure games when you were younger and they weren't the most popular games, but people are waking up now and realizing these are really well programmed games, really fun games, and there's a high
yeah,
in the supply. So it depends on what the game is, Julian. So I agree that, but games like a Sonic game, yeah, they're going to depreciate. You know, uh,
actually, Sega's
but
really knocking it out of the park right now. I know Infinite Wealth is such it's a good game, but they did the Ubisoft thing wherein it's full of microtransactions and the end game was
yeah,
really disappointing on that part. But like a Dragon, Yakuza 7 was such
yeah,
an awesome game that everything was technically there except for some job classes. But they really murdered I loved Infinite Wealth. I really enjoyed the whole journey with it. I finished it but the problem is the end game content lack on a DLC. Come on, man, Sega,
Mhm.
come on. Anyway,
It's,
um,
it's, that's down to the developer. But then again, it all goes down to how many of these are printed, how much do you value the game, and a lot of these games when you buy them on release will depreciate. But then now we're at a point where I'm at the point where I'm buying games for like £5, £10, and I can find them cheap, and I can send them for 15, and someone will pay 15 for them. So you can actually. There is actually a market for games that have once a game has been bought and it's already been played and it's depreciated, that's when you can
there's
actually make money from it because you can actually ask for
there's
lower.
a specific time
Yeah,
where
I
this
mean,
a video game actually goes down in price. That's how I got my collector editions for Horizon,
yeah,
Resident Evil, because when they sold on the initial release, they're like
mm,
uh 22,000 yen, something like that. 3 months after 3 months, they went to 10,000 yen,
yeah,
and that's the price of a
yeah,
standard game. I'm like, oh, I'm getting this one. That's one of the reasons why I got collector's edition, because there's this specific time frame where
yeah.
they would go down in price. And hey,
What?
you just need to check. I mean, I don't really check them always. I just browse them whenever maybe I'm on a 10-minute break, a coffee break, or something at work, and I see it. I do impulse buy on these situations just
Mm,
because I know the how much they were selling for when they first release. It's
yeah,
something that I really wanted, or it's something I could possibly would want to flip sooner or later if I
mm,
plan on not keeping it. I actually sold some stuff, even though I technically am a hoarder. Anyway, I do sell
I have
some stuff
seen,
whenever.
yeah. Evidence of
Technically, I'm a hoarder, but
time.
I do sometimes sell them. I sold some of the bigger stuff that
Mm,
I just don't see myself displaying anywhere in the room. Anyway, so
mm,
there's that particular period during a game's release where they go down in price. So when you get them, that's I do get hit by the I think it's FOMO because it's really cheap for that time frame, so I snag them. But
yeah,
overall, if, it's always about the price before acquisition for me, and it's not about the price after acquisition, because I'm not in it to make a profit, and I'm just in it to enjoy it. Maybe when I go into the point wherein I'm the same as Barrage, where, hey, how about I make a well, my wife actually wants me to make a profit out of these things
your wife
because
has
of
the right mentality. I think your wife is
yeah, she
married to a woman,
and
mate.
actually
Yeah, you married to a
that's
woman.
one of the only reason I bring up pricing value going up and down is when I want something that I want her to agree to buy me. So
There
that's
we
the
go.
only
That's how you manipulate your wife or influence your wife. I don't know. Is that what you're doing? But anyway,
no, that's not manipulation. It's called I don't know what it's called.
it's called love. It's called love. Let's just
That's
leave it at that.
probably it. True love. That's it.
True love. That's what it is. But, yeah, it's really interesting how we talk about video games and pricing and how much can you get a return on and whatever. It's just a lot of fun. But going back to the whole thing about what can push a video game up in price and why it's worth collecting and looking at it. I look at a video game series called Castlevania and how they've gone up in price. And I always do well selling Castlevania, and that's because of the Netflix TV show. I can't help but believe that's the reason. Because it's now there at the map there, it did really well. The Mario movie came out, Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out, Sonic games and Mario games. I sold 7 Sonic games at the last gaming market because of those movies and the TV shows. With Mario, I did really well over Christmas. I sold so many Mario games, it's ridiculous. Pokemon, I always do well with because obviously that's the largest game franchise in the world, so I'm always going to do well. Going back to the subject, and this is what we talk. We actually spoke about this off camera before we started this podcast, Drew, and I was talking to you about how, and this is to do with other sort of habits people have as collectors. And I get, as a reseller, I get really frustrated when men bring their women with them shopping because women are the ones who control the purse strings typically. So I'm like, oh great, this is going to go nowhere. This one guy, I kid you not, he was in his 50s, right? And he was looking at this game called Pokemon Crystal on my table, and he came back and he kept circling the whole market because I've got competitors out there. So he's obviously looking for a better price. I was selling mine boxed and complete and boxed and complete, I mean, it was the game, the box, the manual, and the insert. I didn't have like the health and safety booklet or the little flyer that would have come in there. But you got the player's guide, which is what you need with Pokemon Crystal anyway. And I actually went through the effort, and this is the bit that annoyed me, Drew, and this is going to make you laugh, right? I actually opened up the cartridge and put a new battery in there. You know, they have memory back in those
Ah,
days.
yeah, the CR 2032.
Yeah, 2032. Oh, you know the battery as well. So I got the I got the tab battery out. I put a new tab battery and soldered it in. So it would save like a brand new Pokemon game would from from 2001. And all he was going to do is buy the game and put it on a shelf. He's not even going to bloody play it. I was outraged. I went through all that trouble doing that. I thought, do you know what? Next time I buy this game in, I'm not even going to put a new battery in for these guys because they're just collecting to put it on a shelf. Why did I even go through that effort? It cost me money to buy a new battery. It ate into my margins. I wouldn't have bothered doing it, and now I'm not going to bother now. So if anyone wants to buy a Pokemon game, and because I know you're going to put it on your shelves, that's what it is, to say I've got it. So there's those collectors who don't even buy and play the game. They just want to say, I've got this game, I've got it on my shelf, look. And it becomes a talking point. Oh, you've got Pokemon Crystal. Oh, how lucky, and all this stuff. Play the game. I mean, I feel sad because that's somebody's childhood you're stealing. Someone was meant to play that game, not to put it on a shelf. £250 he spent on that video game just to put it on a shelf. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. It just makes me wonder why
I'm not laughing at him for buying it to display on the shelf. I'm laughing at why you needed to change the battery and it's just gonna display it.
It's not being used. I was outraged. It got to the point where I've acquired that game again and I sold it for not $250. It went literally the following month. I sold it for $300, but that was a better quality copy because I had the health and safety booklet and the flyer, and it was in collectible quality. So that's why I could charge the extra £50. And that was interesting as well because it was a girlfriend and a boyfriend, and the girlfriend said to the boyfriend, "Go on, buy it." I was shocked when I saw that. I thought, this is the first time in history this has ever happened. A woman is encouraging a man to buy a video game and that happened. Usually it's the woman who's saying, "No, don't buy it. It's a waste of money." No.
That's how my wife reacts when I'm really looking at something, and we were recently during the Golden Week we were at Tokyo, so we went to Akihabara. She actually got mad at me because we were on the last day. I haven't really bought anything, and she said, "We're going to Akihabara, so you better buy something." And after some shops, she was starting to get mad because I haven't bought anything yet, and I ended up getting surprisingly I found something in Surugaya, and with
Oh, he's gonna pull out. He's gonna pull out his video game. There we go.
I actually found this for 5,500 yen. So
Oh,
I think it was worth the wait for actually before buying something, because not only did I got Cosmos. This is from the Xeno Saga 3, the Xeno Saga 3 bikini version. So I got it for 5,500 yen. Not a bad price for this.
Bikini version? Are you implying that she's not already in the bikini in the first place?
Yes. Anyway, so glad that I was, because I have this habit when going to Akihabara. I have this habit of I want to be able to buy something big and a figure to bring home. And because the first time we were there, I got the X Plus Rockman, which is this big. It's actually the one I used to display here. And the second time we were there, I got the Chocobo Alpha and Omega figure around this big. And if I didn't bring a big figure, I wasn't able to get a big figure out of our last visit. I am not gonna. It's not gonna be a satisfactory buy for me. So getting to buy something like this, and for the affordable price, is a win-win for me. Also, I got some flyers from Akihabara which are free, so win-win for me. I love getting these things on video game stores. It's actually some things that I collect, so that when people, I actually get guests, I have, hey, you want some collectible or something. I have this free stuff that I don't mind separating with, since I got it for free anyway.
Sir Drew, speaking of buying things, and
Mhm.
Sir Viraj will know this. I think I told him this story before. So there was this guy in Facebook marketplace. So he was selling some Mega Drive games, and among of those games was Fantasy Star Four.
You told me the story. Yeah.
Fantasy Star Four, a PAL release. So basically, it's in English, right? And then so he was selling it for like 120 Australian dollars. And I'm like, 120 is not so bad for a Fantasy Star 4.
Yeah.
And then when he agreed to meet up with me, so I went to his place. That's all I'm getting, the Fantasy Star 4. He was selling a lot of other stuff, but I only wanted the Fantasy Star 4. I went there, and apparently there's no cover art, there's no
Really?
manual.
Okay.
It's just the game plus the casing.
Mm,
And he has no telling if the game is working or not. And I'm
mm,
like, oh shit! And he's selling for 120. So,
mm.
so I was able to convince him to just to offer it like like $80.
Yeah, that's correct.
$80. I mean, I'm basically just getting the game. I'm basically just getting the cartridge. So I
Yeah.
asked Serverge, okay, Serverge, do we have is there any way so I can just reprint the manual by myself? I was able to print like the Mega Drive cover art for it
Yeah, you can.
because I have the casing anyway. I just needed the manual and the cover art just to just to give the illusion that I got the real game with me.
Yeah.
I got it complete in box, but still,
Yeah.
it's still Fantasy Star 4. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, is it
You.
for as far as video game collecting is concerned, it's either we can get it complete in box or we're just happy if it's just a loose cart.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Loose
mean,
cards for me are okay when it's a Super Famicom. Basically the 32-bit, the 16-bit the cartridge era. It's okay for me for loose stuff. But when it comes to CD games without the case, it's
yeah.
a bummer. I mean, I could get a loose copy for a GBA. That's fine with me. Game Boy Advance but I won't have it for the Nintendo DS since it's much
Yeah.
it's a nitpick for me. It's a nitpick for me when it's
There's no,
Vita DS.
there's no reason for
I
your
don't I just
holidays. You had clam cases for that thing. Why have you lost your clam case? Like it was clever what
yeah
Nintendo. I mean, the fact that it was cardboard. I understand with GBA. I get it. People throw the cardboard box away. They get broken in time. That's what happened. Now Nintendo wised up with DS and 3DS by having clamshell cases. And when I see people selling cartridges on their own, I'm like, good lord, what happened here? What went wrong? It's funny you mention this because I've sold.
one thing I automatically uh, one thing I automatically think about why I don't like DS, 3DS, Nintendo Switches that are loose is that
Yeah.
some kid might have lost it in a train or transport. Somebody pick it up. That's why they're selling it. That's the automatic thing that I'm thinking about. That's why
Yeah,
I don't buy loose games.
like
But
there's a
it's
market
normal
for it.
for the GBA games because they came in boxes and the
Yeah,
boxes
got
got
lost.
destroyed
Oh,
or something.
oh,
I don't
oh,
mind those
oh,
things.
another one. Sir Drew. So I was in CAX like a month ago, and then I saw a PlayStation Vita
Hmm.
Trails of Cold Steel one, it's a Vita, so there's no manual, and I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And understandably so, they were selling it for 100 Australian dollars. It's trail.
What?
I'm like, this is a Trails game, so sure, kind of. And
Yeah,
then so they gave me the game, and we were already in the car, and I took the game out, and I
yeah.
saw the cart. Apparently, it's Trails in Cold Steel 2,
Oh
but
dear.
the case says it's Cold Steel 1. And I said to my wife, "Oh," I said to my wife, "I think they gave me the wrong game."
Yeah,
And she's like, "How can you tell?" Oh, yeah, because I know the cover art for Cold Steel 1 and the art for Cold Steel 2. So I can already tell. So we went back to CAX, and then I said to the guy, I think you. I said, I think you gave me the wrong game, and he's like,
Yeah,
no, no, that's the same game. I'm like, no. If you can see on the art there at the cartridge, there's a hint of a Roman numeral 2 in there. It's very
yeah.
faint unless you really look at it.
It's because
And
it's
yeah,
like a
I was right.
scratch.
It can happen. I
Right?
mean, it's not just a mistake. I mean, I've made that mistake at the last game. Oh, my dad made the mistake. I think I told you this about Phoenix Wright and Phoenix Wright Justice for
Oh
All.
yeah, you did.
He put the wrong
That's
game
Tell it,
in
tell
the
it, tell it, tell it, tell it, tell it.
idiot. I'm hoping he'll come back in June when I see him. Well, hopefully the same collector will come back and he's like, look, you put the wrong game in the wrong box, so we'll just do a switcheroo because it's costing me now. Because now I've got an empty box for Phoenix Wright and I've got the manual and because I keep the manuals out of the boxes and I keep them in envelopes. And he just didn't know that there was a sequels. He just thought Phoenix Wright, Phoenix Wright. He just put Phoenix Wright in the wrong game. So honest mistakes, these things can happen. But it's good that you should always check your games when you buy them to make sure because these things can be honest mistakes. They can be made, and it's annoying when it happens. But just be mindful to look at what you're buying and check it. So yeah,
that,
I will say to anyone listening right now.
that's one of the things why I love buying secondhand stuff here in Japan, because they actually take out all of the discs. And when you buy a game, it's because you only see the cases on the this displayed
Yeah.
on the shelf. So what they do is the games are separated. Then
Mm.
there's little markings on there. It's gonna be marked if the
Mm.
package, the this the dish I mean the DVD case has a
Yeah.
damage on it,
Yeah.
or the box art has damage, and
Yeah.
also if the manual is missing or something, then when you go to the counter, they're gonna present you the disc or the
Yes.
cartridge. They're
Yeah.
gonna ask you, "Are is this the correct one?"
Yeah.
You're gonna need to have a verbal confirmation of
Yeah.
that's what you're buying.
Me.
So
Yeah.
that's a safe thing that they do here, especially for secondhand games. So you
Yeah.
know exactly what you're buying into,
Mm.
and they're not lazy in
Even
checking and showing
even then,
this.
always, as a buyer, I always tell buyers always double checking from this point onwards. Even though now I've changed the way I do things now. Before I had them in envelopes. Now I just bought self-sealing adhesive bags. So I put the DS games in there, the manual, everything's in there, but now it's all stuck in, so it's sealed again. So if anybody wants to have a look, I can always open it and show it to them, and they can check it. And I always tell the customers, "Can you check if it's all in there, please?" Because I'm sure I've done it, but I want you to. Well, right now we can obviously because it's pointless if months later you want to come back and like, well, you could have just swapped it out and told me this. It's better you just know there and then at the point of sale what you're buying. If you're happy, that's good, great, done. But always check your games before you buy them. I say that to anyone listening. Obviously, if you're buying online, you have distance selling rules, and that's different for that. But if you're buying in a shop, just check it. Just check it. That's what I'll always say. Make sure the right manual, right
Be
game is.
be as cautious as when you're dealing with somebody personally, then, and also be at the same level of cautiousness when you're buying in a shop, because
Mm.
it could be an honest mistake. It could be
Yeah,
something
I made an
nefarious
honest
on
mistake.
somebody's end. They're like,
And also fake
you
games. This happened to me. I'm a victim of it. Where I bought Pokemon Leaf Green on the Game Boy Advance, and I thought this is a good deal. I'll buy it, and I was naive enough to think, and because it had been so long now, I can't ever return it, and it got to the point where it got silly. I bought it on eBay cheap, and it was missing the manual. I bought the manual separate, and I put two and two together. I've got a game now, and I can put the price up. And I did a guy a deal at the Oxford Gaming Market, and he bought it. He then complained to the event organizer, and the organizer went back to me saying he said that you sold him a faulty game. So I thought, oh great. And then I thought, what game? Oh, this kid, because I know his name because it's obviously listed in my logbook. I thought, okay, what's this guy on about? And I thought, oh, I bet you the game's probably fake or something. And that's exactly what happened. You can get fake Chinesium, fake Game Boy Advance games, and not intentionally. I should have checked it. And there's an engraving on the cartridge of GBA games, and also even in the bits you can actually see, and two of the bits were wrong. So it was a fake GBA game I sold him. So it cost me to get another one to sell it to him, but it was the right thing for me to do, to be honest. So I just bought a new
I,
cartridge and then I sent it to him. And he was so grateful because I could have just said, well, do you know what? You could have like swapped it out and put a fake one there, and you were saying that I've sold you a fake. And I could have easily have said that, but I knew that I was wrong and I had to take accountability for it because I'm honest like that. So I just sent him a new cartridge. I checked it and everything, and he was happy. And he said, "Look, I'd like to do business with you again," because he was really grateful I did the right thing and I sold it. And how he discovered it was a fake, and this is interesting. He knew more about the game than I did, which was when you put when you put the game in there, and it works fine, but when you try to connect it with the Generation 4 Pokemon game, like Pokemon Diamond or something, you should be able to transfer.
I remember that. You're gonna get an error
Absolutely.
on that. I remember that.
If
So
there's an
anyway,
error, yeah, that's it. But I learned from that, and it's even as
anyway,
really
good on you, good on you. And not only is it beneficial for him, but it's gonna be also beneficial for you because you're gonna have a
a lot of
lifelong buyer for your games who will trust you whether whatever you do later on in your transactions is gonna be he's not only is he indebted to you, but he has full trust that you're gonna be honest with him in your
right
succeeding transactions.
for
And anyway, I
£180
think
game. £180
I,
game, man. If you screw someone over a £180 game, you're definitely going to want to have some, some justice, something right. So I can put myself in his shoes. It's 180 spent.
yeah,
Do the right thing. Right.
yeah,
So
and I,
got the
yeah,
support.
I'm just gonna add to this is that if you're gonna be a collector, it is essentially your responsibility since you're gonna be spending so much money on these things. It's your responsibility to know what you're getting into, to check it, and that is the one of the reasons why I don't get hit with FOMO so much is because during my early years of collecting, I actually got scam or one or two some items, and I really got heartbroken with this transaction. So moving forward, I learned how to not get too excited on purchasing something, so that won't buy something that I didn't intend to buy. I got If you're less excited about something, even if it's something you really want, and it's something that you see the price is too good to be true, so you would really want to put a pause on this
Yeah.
whole entire purchase because you might be losing money instead of acquiring something that you have been looking for
Yes.
quite a long time. And this is really true, especially for the retro side of things, because there are repros on the boxes. There
Yeah.
are Chinese products that are really well made. It's
Yeah.
actually, you need nowadays for especially GBA games, you need to actually take
I'll
out
touch.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
you need to
That's,
dissect it to be able to tell if it's true or not, because
that's it.
um if you are somebody who's new into the collecting side of things, you are
Mm.
so excited, you gonna get duped, and you're just gonna be able to tell if it's real or not. If, for example,
Yeah.
Pokemon, you're trying to transfer Pokemon on different
And
Pokemon games, and during
there's so
that point
many
maybe
fake Pokemon out there. So many fake
there's
ones.
no way to return it or something. So when
Mm.
collecting, this is one of the things that I could highly advise to other people is don't get too excited. Just
Yeah.
take your time. It's not gonna be the end of the world if you don't get the purchase. And by the way, Miss Eins, good evening and welcome to the show.
He's joining us now, which is good. Just a final note in regards to reproductions. I have sold some reproductions, not the game itself. So, because I know people like to have the boxes, and this is a true story. This has happened a few times actually, and I've sold a reproduction. Like, so, for example, Mario Land on the on the Game Boy. I found somebody on Etsy who sells the boxes and the manuals and reprints them, and I just put it in the box and I just put the price up from just because I got the cart cheap. I thought it's just nice to have the original thing in there. Well, even though it's not original, it's a reproduction. It's there, and I put it on my table for customers to decide for themselves if it's a repro or not. And if they ask me, I'll tell them it's a repro, but I'm not going to tell them. If they want to buy it and they see it new and they think it's new, let them believe it. There was an incident that happened at Oxford Gaming Market where I had a reproduction box of the original Tetris for the Game Boy, and he bought it. He paid £40 for it, and he was happy with it. And he walked off because he was happy with the condition. He came back, and goes, "This is a reproduction." And goes, "Yeah, I know. That's what it is." He goes, "Oh, can I have my money back? I didn't know it was repro. I want an original." I'm like, "All right, that's fine." And goes, and the guy apologized because I should have asked. And I goes, "Yeah, but then you could have asked. It could have been a case that I could have honestly told you it was a reproduction at the time, but I didn't want to ruin your excitement." That's the thing. The game itself, however, was not a reproduction. It was an original Tetris. And this goes back to the point I raised previously, which is some people buy games not to play, to put on their shelf. And a reproduction box that looks brand new looks better than one that's in a tatty box, which an original would look like at this day and age. So there are people like that. There was someone who bought the entire Mario Land trilogy on the on my GB, and he paid £150 for a bunch of reproduction games. And he was happy with it, and he was excited, and he bought them. He's not come back to harass me about it, because the price that and this is the key thing here, Drew, I never sold those games as if they're original, because an original Mario Land in a box, and an original Mario Land 2 or Mario Land 3 would cost more than the reproduction price. I sold them at reproduction prices. That's the key here. So if I'm going to sell a reproduction on eBay, I would list it as a reproduction. But because it's sold as seen and we're at a market, I'm not going to list it as a reproduction. So the question is, if you think it's too good to be true, or the box is looking really suspiciously minty, ask the seller, is this a reproduction? And then the seller should
In bold capital letters.
Yeah.
Well, here's the
Reproduction copy.
thing. Here's
There
the
you
thing,
go.
Duraj. If you were selling it, it's this is how conventions work. You have everything set out, everything is laid out in your table, right? So when somebody is looking at it, and I'm not gonna be saying this because we're buds or something, but it is on display. You know the prices of these things, and you are basically, what they are gonna be trying to do is, oh, this is cheap, I'm just gonna try to flip it. Or if you have been somebody who's been looking for this, and you know how much this costs for, it is your responsibility to ask for it. But also, if you place it on your table and you placed it that everything is not reproduction, everything is all original, then that's on you, that's your fault. But
I
you
never
just
say.
place it there without any.
Here's another one for you, and we discussed
It's a gray area. It's a gray area, but
area.
it is the responsibility of the buyer to check if it's authentic or not.
Because the gentleman bought it there and then, and he wanted to refund it straight away on the day, I was happy to entertain that. But once you've bought it and the day's over with, I'm not bothered. I'm not interested. You are happy with it, and that's the
You guys should tell that to Miss I, because she's going to those conventions all the time. So
Yeah.
how can you tell her if what she's looking for is original though?
Well, it depends on the what she's buying. If we're talking Game Boy Advance, okay. First of all, the media itself on the cartridge, I'll have to get a cartridge out at some point. But on the cartridge with some games, they'll have, well, a lot of games, there's an engraving on it to show it's original. And when you look into the cartridge slot, it should say Nintendo 2001, and all the pins should be gold. Okay. With reproduction, you notice the last two pins are not gold. Sadly, I don't have a reproduction to show you. It might be silver or an off color. So that's another thing with it. Another thing is, in terms of the boxes in the manual, this is the tricky part, because the way they reproduce boxes now is they look identical to the originals now. Look at the lettering, look at the coloring around, like, for example, Pokemon. If you look at the small lettering, if you know that the paint is faded a bit, you can tell it's a reproduction. So look very closely with a discerning eye and ask the seller, look, has this been reproduced? Is the box reproduced? Is the game reproduced? Is the manual reproduced? You'll notice that the ink is a little different, and it might be a bit too fresh. It looks like literally.
Miss I, when you ask the seller, are they telling the truth?
I will not really believe them, honestly.
So tell us your side of the story then.
There we go. I want to hear this. There we go.
So when I went to the Game Boy Philippines back then with Sergio and the others,
oh yeah,
I was looking under the cartridges, and I noticed that there were some that had Nintendo on it, but the font is like the default Chinese Romanized English font that they used. So I know that was a reproduction. It doesn't look like Nintendo. If you were able to use the computer and load Chinese and Japanese pages back in the 90s, the default font is what the Nintendo looks like underneath the fake cartridges.
Right.
And unless you open them, you wouldn't see if they have batteries in them. So you really couldn't tell unless you open them. It's not visible.
What I do as well to entertain my customers, because I say, look, would you like to look at the insides of the box? And I show them, and you can tell from just looking at the inside. If it's a little bit worn and it's You can tell it's an original if it's got the Nintendo VIP slip in
But
there.
isn't that diminishes the quality of the game though if it's already been opened?
What do you mean?
I mean, I
Mm,
mean, are there some people who's going to be are is there any people out there who says, okay, if you open that up, would that diminish the value of the game? Like for
If
example, the
it was
cartridge,
sealed, if
right?
it was a brand new game and it was sealed, it diminishes the value of it. But if you're opening up the system, I've never had to deal with it.
But how would I know if you're telling the truth though?
But then you look. It also, I suppose, listen, that's a very good point. As a seller, it all comes down to faith. Okay, I had this one customer. I think I told you this. I bitched and whined about this Indian guy that I had to deal with, and he was an Indian guy. It takes one to know one. And he saw my Metroid Fusion on the table, and he goes to me, "For that price, it had better be super minty." Okay, I said, "Fine." I opened it for him, and it had everything in the box. Okay, everything that should have come with it. The only thing that was missing was, in the Game Boy Advance games, they had a little plastic wrapper that comes around it. That was missing. That gets lost in time. Okay, fair enough. But everything else was there. And the thing that he got really upset about, this is going to make you laugh. The game that I had acquired to flip was kept in a place where it wasn't dry. There was a bit of damp. And you get these little damp spots inside the box. Not on the outside box, on the inside. So with damp, there's a little bit of mold. So little mold spots, little black spots.
Yeah,
You know what I'm talking about on cardboard.
watches, yeah.
Watches. And I'm like, and he's like, no, I don't know. I don't like that. And I'm like, okay, let me find. And he was shocked. He was like, I don't want it now. I'm like, okay. And I closed it. And otherwise, the box was, I kid you not, it was mint. I could bring it up now. I wish I'd brought some with me, but it was mint. And this other guy, then I said, I might have another one. Hold up. I might have another one if you're not happy with the quality. I pulled out another Metroid Fusion. I said, Dad, can you get me another one? My dad works with me. And we pulled it out. It even had the bit of plastic around the cartridge. Yeah. And then that had no mold. It was literally mint. Yeah. The cellophane had been pulled off and it was mint. And he was like, oh, I need to think about it now. And then he went for a walk. And I wasted my time with this idiot. And then it occurred to me that he had no intention of buying the game for the price that it was listed at. He was actually annoyed. He goes, well, why didn't you put that one out first? Why did you put this one out? I said, dude, they all look the same to me, and it's a lot to manage, to be honest. I mean, they're all boxing complete as far as I'm concerned. I didn't know that you were finicky about a bit of plastic around the cartridge, or you're upset about those little blotches of mold inside.
Then maybe just tell me. Then maybe so maybe just tell me you didn't like the price of more.
He was trying to besmirch my product by saying, you got to offer me a lower price. And if he had opened with that, I'd have respected him. I would have even given him some discount. But because he was a punk, right, and he was complaining about quality, I went for the quality. Yeah? And he was shocked, actually, that I had another one in stock. He was actually like, he's got 2 Metroid Fusions, the greedy git. That was my contingency plan, shall we say. But I did have
about that because when I was trying to because when I haggled the Fantasy Star 4, I mean I was a little bit reasonable about it because he was selling the game without the cover art, without it's one thing that it doesn't have the manual. It's one thing. But it doesn't even have the cover art as well.
There we go.
And he's selling it for $100 for the original price that he was asking for. So I was able to, so at least he was reasonable about it.
Yeah,
he was reasonable enough. I was able to convince him to tone the price a bit.
You got the game you wanted, and he got some money out of it, and that's it. I mean, let me tell you, this is for you guys listening as well as a reseller. What's the worst that can happen if you ask for a discount? He'll say no. Ask, negotiate, haggle. Let's do something like I would have. I mean, the game what I was selling was £150. I would have gladly have dropped to £10 or 135. Yeah, it's £15. That's a lot of money. That's a meal you could buy with that money. I would have done that for him because he was.
In marketplace. In marketplace and eBay, they will. Some sellers will put in there the price is already fixed. No low ballers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, for whatever price they're asking for, they want that price.
That's correct. But then that
no
being
negotiation.
Said, even though sometimes it will say, because sometimes you can make an offer on eBay as well. But sometimes if that offer isn't there and they don't accept it, and that's down to you. Sometimes, and I kid you not, I actually message sellers privately if they make an offer in there. I'll say, listen, I like your game. I'll happily take it off your hands. Just take a 5 or a 10 off. Can you do it for this much? And that will be, I'll buy it off you straight, quick time. And they'll do it. And it always, like 5 times out of 10, it works. Yeah, I tell you.
Like 50% of the time, it works.
It works. But do it. I do it. You should do it. And that's how I've amassed this whole collection thing. That I've found a way how to get good prices. And in all fairness, they're looking to sell because they want to sell it to you. They want to sell it to you. They're not hoarding it. They want to sell it. Obviously, there's a price that they're happy with in their mind. There's the price that you're happy with. Sometimes the ticket price is the price because, as Sir Joe knows, there are some games that I can't lower the price on because of the scarcity, and I know it's worth that kind of money. And in all fairness, it is a deal because you're just not going to find it anywhere. That's the truth. But then there's some games which I can think, okay, I could do a deal on. Golden Sun for the Advance and Golden Sun 2 Lost Age. Whilst the sequel is becoming much more scarce, and there's another thing, there's another habit that collectors do, and we're talking about why we collect and collecting habits. Now, people will see a original and a sequel together and buy them together. They'll want to do that, and that's happened a few times. There's somebody said, I want to buy these two together. Or the Summer Night games, he bought Summer Night 1 and 2 together. They never ever buy the one game on its own. If they see it comes with a sequel and it's collectible, they buy it together, and they'll want a deal as well, and I'm happy to facilitate that when it's within reason, and I like that. If they're buying more than one game, they're more likely to do, as a seller, they're more likely to do a deal buying more than one game for us because you're helping us out as well. So I just want to point out there.
That's how I get to haggle on Mercari. When I see something I want to buy, and there's a function on Mercari when you do the heart thing, like on Instagram on a particular item, they gonna suggest something along those lines that the seller is also selling. Then you could actually message the seller, hey, I could go buy this too. Could you drop the bias? Could you do a bundle price for me? It works here in Japan, just on Mercari. That's the only place where I could do this. But yeah, haggling is such a nice arsenal that we could add in our repertoire when we're buying and collecting for video games. And that's part of the things, one of the reasons why I got to have friends in our GCP, because I may not been the one haggling, or somebody else haggled me, or when we meet up, we get into a conversation. Either I drop the price more because I like the dude or something when we meet, and it's one of the things that makes us friendlier, or adds friends into our repertoire, because when we have these interactions, it's actually builds camaraderie between collectors. And by the way, before I forgot, one of the things that Miss Eins wants to take notice of, it a Game Boy Advance has a sticker on it. It's gonna be fake. It's gonna be fake. Yeah, when you have this sticker on it,
oh dear,
it's gonna be fake. And the reason why I'm telling this is because these are two of the fake things that I have see here. See, this is the 999 in one with Barbie on it. And this is the Capcom Classics collection. So these games do not exist.
Yeah,
These games do not exist. They both have a sticker on it. And I just bought them for the lols.
Yeah. And it's another one that's NTSC exclusive. We never had a PAL release of that one on the GBA. I thought I'd just throw that out there. So
all right. Let's hear it now from Miss I. Miss I.
Yeah.
What's the full story of your collection or your collecting habits? What have you?
I would say that, like most Filipino kids growing up in the 90s, we mostly grew up with pirated stuff because that was lots cheaper. So you could buy a copy of some PlayStation games in the market for a really low price. So when I had more, let's say, money as I grew up, I can only buy original games for maybe once a year from my birthday money or something like that, like on special occasions. So it started from there. It's more like a sense of achievement when you finally get to buy an original copy of those games that you used to enjoy pirated. There's that. And another one is, maybe some of you may have said this earlier, and some people in the comments. There is a sense of ownership when you have a copy of the video games, something tangible. So if you have the box, you have the manual. They also come with bonuses sometimes, like Sir JDM is not here, but I know he's in the comments. Like this Metal Gear Snake Eater, the plastic is mangled, but this one came with a DVD bonus.
Where you get
Uh,
that?
Yeah.
Where you get that?
Data Blitz. Data Blitz.
What? How much was it?
Circa 2011, I would say. But I
This
don't know.
game,
How much?
Yeah, circa 2009. It's only for, if I have the, I actually still save the receipt. I bought it for 1,150 pesos. October 2010. That's how I
Ah.
collect. I also save the receipts.
So almost 1,200 pesos then.
Yes.
yeah, but that's worth more money than what you paid because you got that that CD with it. That's actually a
Mhm.
collect because you have that DVD or whatever that came with it. That copy that you have, is worth more than a normal one. So you should be very proud of yourself.
Yes, I'm so happy. I'm so happy because Metal Gear Solid, and this was actually a gift from my brother. So this doubles as a great collectible because it also has sentimental value. So collecting video games, they come with memories as well.
Hmm.
Speaking of bonuses, what do I have here? You know, I am a fan of Grand Theft Auto. Just gonna start with the PSP game. I will not show everything because I could not get everything there packed in my small shelf. So even just the PSP games, they also come with posters and maps.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So that's really awesome.
That's Grand Theft Auto.
Liberty City Stories. I also
Yeah.
have the Vice City
Ah.
Stories and their trilogy, but I didn't have time to. I was rushing from work. I couldn't get everything. And like this one, GTA 5, this was actually my brother's, but Stephen Og Trevor
Hmm.
came to the Philippines in one convention. So if you have something tangible and you go to conventions, you could actually get your favorite voice actors or actors to sign them.
Sign
So
it.
this was
Oh, it's
signed
oh, it's
by
signed.
Simon Og.
Whoa.
Really cool. That's really cool. Awesome.
You should save that though. Like, put it in a plastic or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
That's
I
definitely. I don't have any signed something on my collection ever.
I mean, I
I
can
can.
sign it. I mean, I'll sign my name.
Ah,
That's
yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead and sign one of my JRPGs, Joe. Go. I'll even
it's
let you
really,
sign my Stella Glow.
really interesting how you
Oh no,
mentioned.
I'll sign it on her boobs,
All right, all right.
on her butt, maybe.
No,
Yeah,
you'll do
Joe
none of
and
that.
his thickness
None of
for
that.
that
Your wife
thickness.
will kill you. All right. So anyway, moving
Continue,
on.
Miss I. What else do you got there?
So, aside from that, let me get this. So I also have this one. Uh, if you know Fushigi Yugi, I think most people know Fushigi Yugi.
Oh,
This is
is that Genbu Gaiden?
no, it's just Fushigi Yugi DS. It's like somehow a mix of, yeah. There's Genbu Kaiden and the Suzaku Ibun. It's two games in one. But
So what
this
is that?
one,
So what is that? Is that an alternative story?
it's actually still the same story, but you play as the protagonist, the priestess, and
Right.
it's not Miyaka here. It's Madoka. It's a different
Yeah, yeah.
Suzaku
So
priestess.
so
So yeah,
so basically, it's a different story, kind of,
kind of, but it's still
but a different main character.
yes, it still follows the same timeline, but with a different princess.
Ah, right.
And like I said before, with the bonuses, this one came with a drama CD. So this is the actual game, and this
Oh
one
shit! Really?
has a drama CD.
Where you got that?
from eBay. No, sorry, Yahoo Japan auctions through
Yahoo
a
Japan
taxi
auction.
shipper.
Okay.
That's really
Right.
Because
cool.
Okay.
Are you using buy and ship for purchasing in Japan?
Zen Market
yes,
Was
is
it
what
was is it
market.
buy and ship?
yes, I do. But before buy and ship, I used to use Shopping Mall Japan, but it's a defunct. Let's
Maybe
say
you should get Sir Drew to hook you up.
Yeah, I mean, I use no, because so Drew and
Well,
I.
what they actually do is, and there's one of the things when you're buying from buy and ship is because they have this one specific address for multiple buyers, and all of the shipment goes into this particular address. And one scary thing about this is I had some friends who got who has their purchases blocked because they got flagged because so many orders are getting shipped into just a single address. And so that's one of the risky parts of using this services. And it's well, they still get the items. It's just that sometimes they get flagged and things get
All right.
delayed.
So,
And
for example, if all of the Timeless Gamer crew ordered something in Japan, and then we're gonna use your address, then you,
I think it's not a
how much
problem
are you going? How
whether
much are you going to charge us?
the
Then he's gonna. Then
we're
they'll go
not gonna get
mysteriously
flagged.
missing.
But
Then
my
they'll all go
wife's gonna
missing.
flag me. She's gonna ask me, "What the hell are all of this?"
What
I'm
is
gonna be the primary
going on?
suspect, and I think I'm not gonna live another day when that happens because
the
it's
main
one
problem
thing that
actually
I get.
with it.
Um,
It's not the
so,
address.
so I think I use Zen Market when I buy things from Japan. So I remember I was speaking to Drew because there was this Sega pin photo frame I really wanted last year.
Yeah,
I remember he knows about this. So I asked him to get for me. No, try and look using this and this. And I thought buying shit. I thought, now I looked at it. I thought, no. And I discovered my own means, which is Zen Market. And what it is you can.
Is that too?
The thing is that what item I wanted was exclusive in Japan, right? To the point where they wouldn't sell it on Amazon Japan, so I couldn't import it. And I do usually get a lot of things from Amazon Japan from here, and they're really good. But because it was on a Japanese website, I used Zen Market to then buy it for me, and then they took it. So it's a £60 photo frame. That's what it worked out as. £60. It had all the pin frames of all the Sega consoles. It was a lovely ornament. So it wasn't like a video game. It was a video game memorabilia collectible thing, which I found really strange why they just kept it in Japan because Sega were bigger in Europe than Japan. Anyway, I don't want to talk about that. Anyway, so I thought, how am I supposed to get this? And then with Zen Market, and the reason Drew didn't want to do it is because he thought it would be more expensive. And it was expensive, but I was happy
it
to pay.
would have been more
It was
expensive.
it went from £60 to £100, including shipping and sending it here. But it didn't matter to me because I sold it for £150. So that's a good return on my investment. £100. I sold it to a guy in Europe somewhere. He's taken it to Germany. He was a foreign investor who went to the gaming market and he saw it. He goes, I want this. He asked me for some discount. I said no. And he bought it anyway because it's such a good item. So, you can buy things from Japan that might just be £60 in their native country, but someone in Europe was happy to pay £150 for this thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'll say
Right.
a trick on that, but I'll find a way. I'll always find a way. We got a question here in the comment section. Is there a golden rule where UK collectors need to have Streets of Rage 2? Well, if Sedan was here, he would say yes.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I happen to have it because I'm a Sega fan. But I play it on my Mega Drive Mini, so that's my copy these days.
It's
Um,
their D game.
It is the game. It is the game. But going back to collecting, Miss I made a very interesting point and showed a map in a game, which was Grand Theft Auto, and it was in there. Now it's very interesting. I did a really interesting debate with my father, discussion. Now, I like to buy games from other regions that we never got. So Final Fantasy Legend on the Game Boy was never released in the European region.
Which he also likes.
Yeah. Final Fantasy Legend 2 was never released here, and neither was Final Fantasy Legend 3. I think Miss I actually likes Final Fantasy Adventure.
Indeed, that one.
But Legend
Mystic
is
Quest?
Adventure was actually released in the UK. It was called Mystic Quest on the Game Boy. Anyway, so we're talking about Final Fantasy Legend here. Now, my copy didn't come with the map. Okay, I got a manual in it, but after doing some research, they're supposed to come with a map. And I said, Dad, I can't very well in good conscience sell this as complete in box for this much money
Incomplete.
if I haven't got a map in there. Now, my dad goes, yeah, but come on, man, it's been over 30 years. Who's going to remember if there was a bloody map in there? As far as they're concerned, as long as there's a manual in
He
there,
doesn't get it.
you don't need it. No one's going to know. It's ignorant. It's lost knowledge.
He doesn't get it.
I said, Dad, understand. It's wrong.
From one collector to another.
I'm a collector.
It's a lot.
It's wrong. So he goes, all right, fine, buy your bloody map. And I had to
It's morally wrong.
It's morally wrong. And I went and bought the map. It cost me £40 just to bloody buy the map, and it's eaten into the cost of the video game. But I'm
For
still
the
making
map? $40, really?
£40. Yeah, because I had to pay for. It's not the cost of the map; it's just shipping that's costing more than the
There
bloody
you go.
from eBay UK, eBay.com. And the guy was really nice. The guy I dealt with, and he was happy to. He understood that there was a eBay premium because he doesn't really ship international, but he did it. And in the end, I got it, and it's eating into my margins. But then at the same time, I know whoever's going to buy it will love that game because it has everything in there, and I can justify the £200 price ticket that's on the box because it is complete in box. I have it in there. The only thing that's missing is if it did come with it, is a health and safety booklet, but I don't really care because nobody reads that anyway. It's the content that came with the game, and that's the main thing. And as far as I'm concerned, that's complete in box. Final Fantasy Legend 2, I had the map, and that's in there. And same with Legend 3, I got that as well. So I've got all three, to be honest. And I can sell them accordingly. I don't look at price charting when it comes to American games because here in Europe, it doesn't affect the price is more because it's not here. It hasn't natively been sold here. I can put a higher price there because it's so scarce, and I'll do it. And a collector will probably buy all three for me at the same time, and I'll be able to cut him a deal, and I'll make money, and he'll have all three Final Fantasy Legend games, which nobody in the UK really has because it was never released here. That's what I'm offering. So I've started to venture out as a reseller to people who are collecting 4 formats, and Final Fantasy is big. That's one thing I realized in November. You know, people here love Final Fantasy. I think I sold like 10 Final Fantasy games. It was ridiculous. In the space of 5 hours, it was silly. So I realized let's go high end and let's look at more retro Final Fantasy games. And the Legend series are there, and I think that's an obscure title that people have forgotten through time, and people will want to collect for that. I do actually have a copy of Final Fantasy Adventure as well, and that's because even though I could have Mystic Quest isn't like people are like, what's Mystic Quest? Final Fantasy is the bigger brand. So I know as Final Fantasy Adventure, people want to buy it. Also, I have to do my research. As Miss Porter knows, Final Fantasy Adventure is the first Mana game. That's the truth. It's a prequel to Secret of Mana on the SNES. You know, a lot of people don't know that, and that's a good way to sell it. Well, that being said, there was a remake called Sword of Mana on the GBA, and that's the way to play it. But it's nice to have these obscure titles that people can't get their hands on, and people will pay through the nose for them. You know, and I know Drew says I don't get FOMO, and normal standards says you won't, but there are some people that see these things.
He only says he's not. But if the right game is in front of him, he will change his mind.
They're like this. This is their reaction when they see a game.
Hey, if it's cheap, and it's something that costs less than a vending machine coffee, I'm gonna buy it, yo.
Yeah, so
that's not FOMO. Yeah. That's called being frugal.
Yeah, it's being frugal, but
anyway.
Yes, they don't usually work.
Anyway, I'm gonna add something to what Biraj was saying, including regarding shipping and why I rarely do this pasabay in our Tagalog term, or something that I would hook you up, or is Japan is really, really strict when it comes to money laundering, wherein you send money to me. They actually monitor my finances, everything that comes in internationally into my bank. They're going to give me a notice or something regarding I need to confirm or report to them why this certain amount of money came from abroad going into my bank. And when I set up my banking accounts, I had to declare what I'm gonna use it, and I only declared I'm gonna use it for my my salary is gonna be deposited into this account. I'm gonna pay some of my billings from this account, and they asked, "Are you gonna use it for foreign transactions?" I said no. So that's why when something goes into my bank, especially before when I needed to withdraw my remaining money from the Philippines because I decided that I'm gonna stay here. I sent it from my bank from the Philippines, went to my bank, so they plugged me. I had to report them because I cannot withdraw money from the from my bank. So it was such a huge hassle for me dealing with all of that, and I got my bank frozen for 1 to 2 weeks because I was not able to get to the bank. Anyway, besides that point, shipping is huge hassle. So unless I'm gonna ship a huge box wherein there's gonna be a huge amount of items on there, it's not that gonna be beneficial for me, because if it's gonna be as just a single item, the premium is gonna be higher than because shipping it costs so much. So
Yeah.
that is the reason why I rarely do this thing. So unless some people would be buying it, then we're just gonna keep it here, and they're gonna just gonna get it when they visit the country. That part is fine with me. But when I need to ship it, and it's gonna be a little bit insulting if I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna charge you $100 for me to send this to you, and
Yeah.
that particular part is somewhat awkward for me, if I'm gonna, especially if I'm
Never
gonna say it to my
really
friends.
feel awkward when discussing money, man. Don't be awkward. It's just you're telling it how it is. It's business. It's not personal. It's not personal. I know people get
Yeah,
shy
yeah,
when they
yeah.
talk. I
But
think there was a comment saying
Uh,
60 says that's at haggling. There's nothing to be shy about. Just take it.
yeah.
What's your best price? Can you lower it for a fiver? Could you take £10 off? There's nothing wrong with
yeah,
just say it. Is there what's the best price you can do? I like this game, but I can't quite make the £40 you want for it. Can you do it for
All right.
35? You
So
know?
let's toss it back to Miss I. So Miss I, so we already established your when it started, right? So what are your common problems or common challenges when you're trying to collect?
Money.
everybody.
Money,
Aside from the obvious, of course.
Problem.
Aside from the
money.
obvious.
Can't afford it.
Yeah, it's mostly money and finance and dollars. And mostly it's the accessibility of the games, because I remember the computer shops here in the Philippines, they mostly sell bootlegs. So I remember buying a Pokemon Blue for 800 pesos. That's like maybe 18 US dollars or some sort. I thought it was original, but it turned out to be fake because the box didn't. I was like, how old was I then? Maybe 11 years old. So I wasn't too knowledgeable on how to discern whether the thing is actually legitimate or not. I had to return the thing, so that's how difficult I found it to collect since then. But now with the internet, and at least there's Datablitz and other legitimate computer shops here in the Philippines, we could buy original games, but still some titles are not as easily found here as
Right,
overseas.
right.
Like the things I like this one. Actually, most of my things are shipped or imported. This one, I had to buy this from UK, eBay
Double O
UK.
seven.
It's actually Peggy, if you can see.
Yeah, Peggy
I
Ray.
don't think we had this here in the Philippines. I didn't see this in Data Blitz. I'm
Yeah.
not sure it was even sold here because I love James Bond and it's a third person action game.
That's actually a good one.
This one.
From Russia would love. Oh,
I had to
cool.
buy this also from Yahoo Auctions Japan.
Dragon Ball DS.
Um, I
OG
had to buy
Dragon Ball.
this because the US version did not use the original Japanese opening theme, the Makafushigi Adventure
Mm.
that we
Right.
know. So I had to buy the Japanese version, but again, we don't have this here.
Oh,
And
see right there, Sir Viraj. Now that's being a nitpick. So
What are we
just
talking about?
because it doesn't include the
I am
original
the
song, she rather buy the original.
I am the nitpicker.
Miss
There's nothing
Ines
wrong
is gonna have a field day in Japan when she comes here.
I need
She better bring two luggages without anything on it. Come here, bring a lot of money. She's gonna be filling those two bags. She's gonna go home.
I need to visit a book off there. It's book off, right? One of those
When
secondhand stores.
you're
Not just book
here's the
off. No,
thing. Since you love
That's
not
why
just book
anime,
off.
since you love anime
from
games, those are the cheapest ones. Tho-
And they're in
those
pretty good
literally
condition.
the cheapest one, 100 yen games. They're gonna be the anime games. Those are the ones that are printed a lot here. They're gonna be, sometimes they even sell this stacked on top of each other. Dragon, all of those anime video game adaptations are cheap. And I remember I bought a game here in the Philippines, the Jump Ultimate Stars. If you know that one, also on the DS. I bought it on the Philippines, I think 2,600 back then when I was working in the call center. I needed to sell it before because some troubling times then. I got it here, mint condition, comes with the manual, everything's flawless, 300 yen. And I'm like, what the?
Mm.
So
All right.
cheap.
So aside from
Oh, sorry, sorry.
accessibility and shipping, Miss I, what else? What other problems is there?
Hmm, what else? Actually,
Because you mentioned earlier, if the game is not complete in box, then no.
Mm.
Do you feel the same sentiment?
I guess it depends on the game because I've bought loose cards before. But if it's
Yeah.
something I really want to collect, I would be very nitpicky. Like the guy that didn't like the mold on the box that Cervera just sold. I would
Yeah,
also not buy that one if
there
I
you
was
go.
collecting.
There we go. But then,
But if
that
I'm
being said, yeah, if I showed you one that didn't have the mold and it was the same price, obviously you wouldn't be so nitpicky then, would you? You'd buy it. You wouldn't be like, I need to think about it. You know, you wouldn't do my head in. You'd buy it. I want your money. All right.
Okay. So we're almost reaching the third hour mark anyway. So so let's talk about how do we cope with this kind of
Well,
collecting.
well,
I'll
how,
throw it with Miss I first.
you know,
So Miss I, knowing now in the Philippines, we have a lot more retro video game conventions going on. There's a lot more now compared to years before. How are you able to cope now? Like, yeah, you got a full time job now. You're more financially able to afford these games now. So how are you able to cope knowing that the retro video gaming community is a little bit more prevalent?
I would say I am trying to save money, especially for these conventions, so that when I go there, I have ammunition, ammunition to buy retro games.
When was the last time you went?
That's the problem.
mm,
When was it? It's
Yeah, because Sir Raj, we usually do our conventions on the weekend.
yeah.
I mean, not all the time we're able to just call in sick just so that we can go to these conventions, right? Miss I knows this.
when the last
And
time I went was that the last time we went. That was
the
the
last
last
time
time.
that's the last time we went, right?
Yes, because I
And
had lots
when
more
yeah,
challenges.
and when Sir Joel was here in the Philippines, so I took I took him to Game Boy Philippines at that day, right before we met up for lunch. And the original plan was for Miss I to meet us there, but she overslept.
Oh,
I
bless.
think
I had a freaking tiring shift.
so. She overslept. So it's just me, Sir. So it's me, Sir Joel, and and Shin all went to Game Boy Philippines. Of course, Sir Joel loved to stay there a little bit further,
Yeah,
a
you
little
said
bit more,
I can
right?
imagine you would.
And and Sir Joel had money to spend. Like
Mm,
he came prepared,
yeah,
so he came prepared, right?
dollars. Yeah.
And
No doubt.
and I and at the time I only had enough, and I know I'm going there, but I only brought so little money in there, and the only game that I got out of there, and Sir Viraj knows this, Sakura Wars
Yeah.
for the Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the only game that I got there.
Were you happy with
But
it?
that
Was
said,
it a good
I
game?
was happy. I
There we go.
mean, with that game alone, I was happy. Sir Drew, they only sold it for 1,000 pesos.
Oh,
Sakura
that's
Wars, complete in box for Nintendo Wii.
R1?
R1, Region 1,
Damn.
NTSC
yeah.
US for only 1,000 pesos. It was a
Well,
steal.
for
And
that price,
It,
then,
it,
should be
it-
yeah,
happy. For that price,
yeah,
he should be happy. If he's not happy, there's
right?
something wrong with him. All
And then
right.
the problem was,
well,
and then the problem was when I tried, so I tried testing it on my brother-in-law's Nintendo Wii. The game was not booting up for some reason. So after doing a little bit more reading, apparently Sakura Wars on the Nintendo Wii was one of those releases for the Wii that were printed on a DVD 9 dual layer. So apparently there are some units that have compatibility issues reading the DVD 9 format. So not
Mm.
all Nintendo Wii not all Nintendo Wii's will be able to play that. The Nintendo Wii U it can.
Yeah, we can play.
So I have no telling if the game will work on mine.
Mm.
So it was only until when I took the game back here in Sydney I was able to play it. But however, it turns out um, my game will only play if I use Gecko on it. It need so well. I'm guessing this is NTSC US. So what it tells me, it needs a Wii U US version
All right.
console for that to
Mm.
play because
I hate
because
region lock.
again it's region locked. So
Mm.
that's the main problem. So apparently that was the problem. It's not working on the Wii because our Wii in the Philippines is the Asian version release, not the USC,
Oh,
not the
yeah.
US. So unless you mod your Wii, Sakura Wars will not work.
Well, just buy another Wii. Just get a Wii. They're cheap now. Just get a
I
Wii.
don't know. I mean, no. I mean, I already got. I have a modded Wii anyway, so
It's not big.
I was able to play that thing. But still, like,
One thing I will say about Wii and playing Wii games on the Wii U is they perform better on the native Wii console, and I'll explain why. It's to do with the resolution when it blows up. Like on the Wii U, I tend to find that the screen is a little more cropped than it should be. Even though it's HDMI out, I've noticed that the Wii games play a little better on the original hardware. Just a thought out there. I don't know if anyone else has noticed this. But then again, who here actually has a Wii U? Apart
I
from
don't
me.
have one.
There you
I
go.
skipped that one. Anyway, all of the games in the Wii U you could play in the Switch.
No, that's not true.
not
You can't.
not necessarily
Not
true.
yet.
Where's
Not
your
yet.
Star Fox Zero? Did Star Fox
On
Zero
Wii U?
get a port? No, you're wrong. Okay, you can't play Star Fox Zero. You can't play what is it called? Deus Ex. Yeah, Human Revolution. You can't play that on the Switch. You can't play Nintendo Land. I don't see that getting a port on the Switch.
Ah, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
are you in the virtual console? No.
I'm just messing up. But I know you got your big titles like Mario Land, Mario Brothers U, Mario Kart 8, which is actually the deluxe edition on the Switch. But again,
Yeah.
I
Xenoblade
yeah,
X,
no,
yeah,
somebody reminded me
Xenoblade X
of
is
the
not on the
section,
Switch. It's only on the
Xenoblade
Wii U.
X.
It's
Okay,
Wii U
okay.
exclusive though.
so there are
They
some that
better
are
port it then.
to the Wii U, and I'll tell you something. If you get a Wii U cheap, these games are worth playing. I know Wii U gets a bad flack, for what had happened with it and how Nintendo managed the marketing of it. But I think so. Joe recently got one, and he's starting to realize
You're right there.
this thing was made with love. This is the thing, it was made with love.
I'm still trying to finish Tokyo Mirage Sessions before we move to the 16-bit JRPG episode. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish my game before we move to another one. Anyway, so how are you able to cope? So Miss I, are you finished? How are you able to cope? Because
That's it.
I know you're saving cash for the PlayStation 4.
Yes. Which
Mm.
turned
How's that
out
going on?
oh,
Ha,
it's
any,
it turned into the
are you
laptop.
halfway there?
Yeah.
Oh, you
I'm
bought your because your old laptop broke. So
but
your
then
PlayStation 4 money was- got
Oh.
spent for the new laptop
but then the PlayStation 4 games I couldn't play because I don't have the console. I can play now on this new laptop on Steam.
Mm.
on Steam. Oh, didn't they announce that they're discontinuing PlayStation 4 this month?
Yes, I that's
Yeah.
why I'm trying to earn as soon as I can before the
Yeah, because they're yeah, because with
ran
that
out.
announcement, that means the PlayStation 4 console will skyrocket in price now.
Yes, it's already started skyrocketing.
Yeah,
Which
well,
what's skyrocketing?
PS4.
The
The
price of the
PlayStation
PlayStation
4.
4 console.
The
It'll go up,
console?
and it'll be another dip. I promise you, because that thing is sold in the millions. So in the pre-owned market, you'll find a PS4 cheap easily. With the PS3, you can get it cheap as well.
I mean, you don't have to get the Pro.
Mm,
You can just get the Slim if you want.
yes.
Yeah.
It's
As long as it's new, I don't.
it's still
Oh,
yeah.
Sir
yes,
Drews.
It's still cheaper. Anyway,
Yeah,
it's
it's
still
cheaper in
really
UK
cheap
as
here.
well. Cheaper
Only
in
10,000 to 15,000 yen for the slim. So
All I,
it's
what I
if
want to
you're
say though,
really?
very quickly, I just want
I
to say
mean,
those
the
are
slim.
searching for those are
I only suggested the Slim because knowing what games Miss I is interested in, it doesn't really need the Pro. It doesn't
yeah.
really need the four. It doesn't really need the 4K upgrade.
And when they eventually turn I don't know if they will, okay, because the PS3 is still being supported, even though it's not obviously supported, shall we say. They still have the PS Online shop for the PS3. Now, for those of you listening, the best you get PS3 games quite affordable now. They're quite cheap, but as soon as they turn off that PS3 Online, those physical media is going to go up. So right now is the good time to stockpile PS3 media. There's a hint, in my opinion. In my
PS3 and
opinion,
360.
yeah.
But
Well, 360's gone up.
PS3 and 360, the best time is now.
Yeah. Because the 360s, they're going to close it. I think, is it closed now already? It's been closed. So they will eventually, you will have to, it will go up in price, and it's worth holding on to the physical media in terms of the
I
value.
think they announced 360 servers. I think 2 months ago, but
Yeah.
2 months ago now.
There we go. So it's always good to do that. My Wii U collection has gone up a little bit in price. Well, Nintendo games have always been holding their value, and that's another thing I want to put out there. Nintendo games hold their value.
Nintendo is one of the constant when it
Right.
comes to pricing.
So how about Sir Drew? So Sir Drew, I know you're
Go-
the biggest
Coping?
collector here at the moment. How do you cope collecting your stuff? I mean, I mean, we know your wife is doing hard, preventing you from overspending. So how do you cope?
Well, first of all, I have certain rules in collecting. Like if I need to take a loan to buy something, I'm not gonna buy it. So when
Yeah.
so the biggest purchases that I have would actually be the PlayStation 5 and the Series X. So that's the ceiling for my purchases. And um yeah, I think that's the ceiling for my purchases. Anyway, certain rules when like if I need to take a loan and I need to bring out the credit card to buy something, I don't buy it. I don't believe in buying a buys that would you would need to take a loan for it, because you're gonna be paying for it. Your future self is gonna hate you for it. It's not
Yeah,
really good,
that's
especially
correct.
if you're
Let the future
the
self handle it.
Listen,
huh?
The issue is now.
No, no. Anyway,
Let future me
since
deal with it. Sure.
I
since
tell
I
you,
have talked the about my family's finances before in the previous episode, so I'm holding all our me and my wife's finances. So if I am also the one who who thinks of what things to pay, so I don't really want to also stress myself adding something like you may say it's only a 50 or a 30 or how much dollars it is, but if you're gonna add all of those, it's gonna stack up, and you're gonna have a bad year to pay in paying those things. So
yeah,
one of my rules: if you need to use the credit card, don't buy it. Anyway, second of all, it's either you're gonna be before I buy something, it's gonna be either you're playing it. If you need to, you're gonna buy it now. It's something that you would be playing now. If you're gonna play it later, just wait for it to go down in price. And it's actually a back and forth battle with myself most of the times, because I could not rely on my wife, because I when I tell my wife I want something, she just go. It's just not helping with this
yeah.
whole collecting thing, honestly. So she's helping, she buys it. So she's really always encouraging me to do it, and that's
Mm,
that's both a good thing and a really really bad thing. especially if you're the husband who doesn't have
Well,
control. So I
one question
I
I
need
quick ask
to.
is, have you ever thought about selling something to subsidize your collecting? So if there's a game that you have and you think, I don't want it anymore, I can sell it, and that will or
Here's
trade it
here's
into.
here's the thing. If I'm gonna sell something to buy another thing, then why did you bought the first thing in the first place?
You enjoy it. You've
So
enjoyed it. You've had fun with it. So what's the point in it being there?
oh yeah. It's a good thing that you reminded me. We talked about this in the chat before. Yes, it is true. You need when the moment you bought something, it's already served its purpose because you acquired it. So
Yeah.
um here's the thing: when you already acquired it and you're in the stage where you still want to keep it, but it's okay to sell it even if you just bought it. You're gonna make a quick buck because the moment of acquisition already it has served its purpose. So
Mm.
it's different place, different time. So it's
We
situational.
are
But
treating video games like hookers, ladies and gentlemen.
yeah,
Well,
sure,
well,
sure.
experience it. Someone else have a chance. You
Well,
know, let someone
well,
else have a chance.
it
Man.
Or pass it to somebody else.
Yes, and it'll be HIV free. I promise you. You know, don't worry. You know, it's clean. You know, I clean all my video games.
anyway,
They're clean.
You might fancy a bit of Namco one night. You want to fancy a bit of Sega the other night. You know, have a bit of Square the other night.
at
You
the
know,
end of the day, it's for our entertainment, our satisfaction, is for our happiness. So when you're no longer happy with it in your possession, you wanna
yeah.
sell it. Just go ahead and do it. It's nobody but
I
whatever
think
other people
All right.
say.
All right.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go with the pimp this time.
the pimp.
Yeah.
This is it.
How
All
do you
right.
cope,
Let me tell you
February?
something. If it wasn't for people like me, people like you couldn't collect because people like me have to
Yeah.
sell our
We
collection.
need you.
I mean, for me, it was a case of okay, I was gifted all my games like before I became a working age, and I started having my own collection, and my attitude changed, and I kept everything clean and mint because I was like that, and I played the games, I enjoyed it, and it got to a point now when I bought my own place. And I realized it's like I said, I got a house to myself now. I could actually make a games room. I could do all this stuff. But I'm thinking, I haven't played this video game in over a decade. I looked at it in the box that I kept it in. It's not been played in a decade. How much is it worth? And I saw how much it was worth, and I thought, oh, okay, so my games have skyrocketed now. Yeah, let's look at liquidating it now because, to be honest, someone else will appreciate this, and I've had my fun with it. There's no point in me filling up my house with stuff. Like if you just look at my sort of minimalist setup here, you can sort of see I've got my 4K OLED, 65 inches. I've got like a mini console there, and my SNES Mini, I've hacked it, and I've got all the games running on that. I don't need to collect for physical SNES anymore because that's the way I play it. Screw you, Nintendo. And I've got all my mini consoles up here in the cabinets, the Famicom Mini, and there's a NES Mini there if you look close enough, and my Sega Mega Drive Minis and Astro City Minis and all that. I've got mini arcades. I've got Blu-rays and DVDs I collect. I've got a Sonic diorama up there, and there's an Amiibo Mario there. I've got a bit of everything here. Okay, so I've got.
You are still collecting them just in digital form.
This is it. So because they take up so much space, and because even though it's unofficial, I don't see it as piracy because Nintendo, I paid you for that Metroid Zero mission. Why is it over 250 quid now? Why am I buying the physical now? It's not going into your pocket. It's going to a collector's, into someone's pocket. Well, I deserve the digital media because I supported the game when it came out. I know I'm rationalizing bad behavior, but I think it's logical, and I think that it's a fair point. So how do I cope? That's the question. Well, in all fairness, I've started selling off my library, and how I cope is I've lived long enough to become the hero or the villain, depends on how you want to look at it. Which is I take my collection, and I did this as of July last year. I take it to gaming markets. People are so grateful because nostalgia hits them right in the heart. It hits them. It's a warm feeling when they pick up that game I had, which they missed out on. They want it, you know, and they're happy to pay the premium for it or not. They're wrestling with their wallet, and there's that block there, and I'm like, I have to whisper in them, go on, buy it. You only live once. I'll whisper in their ear to tell them to buy it, and they buy it. So in some cases, it's a case of I think I had Klonoa Empire of Dreams on the GBA boxed and complete. It's £150. Okay, it's a lot of money for a game. The mother bought it for the kid, you know, because he wanted it so bad. So people will, people will buy this. People will buy it, buy these things. They'll want to. invest into it heavily. So for me, how do I cope? Well, I get a sense of pleasure out of providing and facilitating people that very obscure, rare, collectible handheld games, which are predominantly Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and DS and 3DS, but Nintendo handhelds, because nobody really has a dedicated table to handhelds at the gaming market. Everybody's doing PlayStation, everyone's doing Xbox, everyone's doing SNES and Mega Drive and all this other stuff. But nobody's really, everyone has a small little handheld section next to their consoles. It's always a small one. I don't know if it's the same with you guys in Manila or wherever it is you're looking, but nobody's dedicated to a handheld format like I am. And I've cornered that market and I get a sense of pleasure out of it. But even the stuff I collect now, and it's not to say I don't collect. So I collect mini arcades from Replicade and things like that. So I'm very much into the retro stuff. Like we're talking 4th gen, 5th gen stuff. And I'll always collect mini consoles because I love them. I think mini consoles are really cool. You can mod them and you can put all the games in there. And when I got bored over COVID and modded my Mega Drive and SNES Mini, it made me realize emulation is a really good way to play these old video games. Why am I paying a king's ransom to collect physical when I can just play digital on a big TV and I've got a lovely television for it? Don't get me wrong, emulation will never replace the authentic experience. And that is worth paying a premium for if you really care about it. I want to put that out there straight away. It's just that I don't have as much time as I used to, so it isn't worth the opportunity cost of collecting. And also cleaning and all that stuff, that's a pain as well. So that's something that I have to do because, you know, I'm not saying that I don't have a wife or a partner who can help me clean and things like that. So it's a lot more of a burden on me. So I don't really like to have too much. And I'm all about minimalism if I can. And there are some things I do buy now just to flip. For example, there's a game called Demons of Astable DX, which was a Kickstarter, which is a port of Demons of Astable, which is a Mega Drive homebrew game that they've made. They're making a special edition for the GBA, and I've backed the Kickstarter just to buy it. But am I going to play the game? No. I'm going to flip it and sell it to someone who missed out, and he'll happily pay the premium because I'm facilitating that market. If that makes me a bad guy, then I'm a bad guy. But actually, I'm not, because I'm allowing someone to buy it. People say, "Oh, there's this you're a scalper." That's what you are, Viraj. You're a shameless scalper. And I say, no, I'm not. A scalper would be someone who puts the game up to a silly price, like £500 or £1,000 or whatever, which is way above market value. I'm just asking for a small bit of a commission for buying the game and having the foresight to buy the game and being able to sell it at what I think is a fair price. And there is a fine line between being a respectable reseller and a shameless scalper, and I'm aware of that. And that's something that I have to be mindful of when I acquired this very, very rare video game called Ninja Cop on the GBA, because it is currently trending at $1,001 on price charting. I'm thinking, what do I price it at? Because it's not even available in the price market anymore. So I could actually put it up to higher than that because somebody on eBay wants £1,600 for it from Greece, and he's the only one selling it now. So it's a very fine line you have to tread when selling games. So that's how I cope, which is I like to sell games, but I also like to pre-order things like mini consoles and mini arcades, and if there's a value in it. And I also like to mod games. That's more my collecting vibe. Again, I also buy physical media, Blu-ray, DVD, and obviously my mini arcades and mini consoles. That's more my thing. And in all fairness, I am sport for choice. You know, I have so much here. I mean, look, this is my desk in front of me. Look, look. I've got this. Like, who's got this in the house? A cyber stick, you know? Who's got all this junk, you know? I call it junk, but I've got my Wii there. So I've got my Switch there. My Wii U's behind the TV. And then it comes to a point, this is how you cope, and this is the message you have to ask yourself, which is, this is enough. This is enough. I have enough. I have more games behind me. Do I need to buy any more games? How much more do I need? Isn't this enough for you? Are you not entertained? How much more do you need? I think sometimes
Here's the thing.
Because they just want to have the pretty box. I just want to have this on my shelf. They don't even bloody play the bloody things. There's something wrong in that regard with people like that. I think there's something. That's when the sickness has gone too far. Play the games you get. So I have to.
Here's the thing, Biraj. I think
we are playing the games. We are playing the games one game at a time.
I think Biraj is the complete opposite of what typical Filipinos are, because all typical Filipino gamers started with piracy. We never had this original stuff. We all played pirating these games through piracy means. And then
There was a
Yeah,
piracy episode.
when
No, I did actually start with some piracy as well because the PS1 got chipped here in the UK, and I have a lot of pirated games for my PS1. I'll be honest with you. So I did start with piracy, but I don't mention it often because it's not something I'm
I think
proud
you're
of.
just too far ahead into the gamer's life cycle. So we're currently at the we went from the piracy stage, then the slowly gaming and selling stage.
Yeah,
Because at some point we were there buying this game, selling the game to be able to buy a new game because we had
yeah,
we just the right amount of money to buy
yeah.
these games per piece. Then now
I just wanted
we are that
Right.
collecting stage now. For me, I'm at the collecting stage. I
yeah.
think on a later date, maybe I would become like you, wherein I would be selling these games
Well,
when I know
Eventually.
through my
it's a
wares.
cycle. It's a cycle.
Look, it's all in there. Look, this is my collection for DS. This is how I collect. This is how I sell now. This is like I keep in these tote bins and I keep them.
Now Joe is focused right now.
So, there we
I'm
go.
not
Joe is
looking.
really focused right now.
Again,
See me not looking.
box protectors in plastic acrylic. You have to keep them. Yeah, so we have this here, and this is it in the box here. I've got loads of boxes
Yes,
here.
Joe will be sending
this.
you a DM
Pokemon
later
game.
in regards.
Official Pokemon game. Look, there it is. Look, all the GBA stuff that
And
I
that's
have.
the show, guys.
That's it. So look, is this not enough? How much more do I need to collect? Like,
That's the
what
show,
is this? What sort of crazy guy has three?
That's a show,
So this is it. Like, how do I cope? I have to sell this stuff. How much more does anyone need? You know, I mean, I collect this stuff to sell it to you people. So
Okay,
that's it.
guys, for all of those interested on those video games, please send Biraj a DM later on after the
There's
show.
more than
Just send,
this.
after
There's
the
other-
show, just send a private message to Sir Viraj. Who knows? He
Yes.
might throw in a good deal for you.
No, I want every
He
penny.
might even go and do a pre-shipping on you if you buy like 10 pieces or something. Go ahead, DM him.
The problem
Oh,
I'm
you
having.
buy the ship and ship because buy ship has a UK address. Buy from Serverage and get it shipped to the UK address.
Yeah.
But it's silly just how much I've collected over the years. And I've got Pokemon games, which I don't even play, but I do it for other people. I buy things to flip, and people appreciate that they're in good condition. So that's how I cope. I get pleasure from selling to those people, such as yourselves, who really do revere good quality video games. And there is a sense of happiness that I get from it, a sense of fulfillment and joy that I'm actually allowing people to play the games that I grew up with, which I don't play anymore, and give them a chance, give them another life. Because these were games designed for children to play or people to play that to enjoy. Again, I like to buy and collect all sorts of other things as well for myself. Obviously, the mini arcades and mod things and stuff like that. There's all sorts of weird, quirky things that I collect now. Not so much the tangible video games, because it's not that I've fallen out of love with it. I've just fallen out of time. And there's other things I'd rather do in my time. And my relationship with gaming is more facilitating others to play the video games. So yes, live long enough to be the hero, so there you have. And I think somebody actually said I like the Dark Knight reference that you put out there. So there we have it. So yeah, on that note, look,
Honestly, you only become the villain on somebody's eyes if they cannot afford your wares.
sorry, what did you say? What did you say?
You only become the villain on someone's eyes if they cannot afford your wares.
Well,
They cannot afford your items. Ah, you're a bad guy. But
Well,
if they can afford it, hey, you're best friends.
you need people like me to point your fingers and say you're the bad guy, right? Because I'm willing to do what it takes to be able to facilitate that. Because there are some games and some sellers don't want to stock them because they're so expensive at the gaming market. Really, the sweet spot is 30 to 70 pounds. That's what people can generally afford to pay. Anything above 70, actually, anything above 100 is baller money here in the UK. But that being said, there are people willing to pay over £100 because they can appreciate the obscurity that come from affluent communities. The way I lay out my table is I have games starting from 5, 10, 15, and they go upwards. So towards the end of the table, that's where the most expensive games are. The problem is, and it's not my fault if somebody's going to look at the expensive game saying, I can't afford that. Well, I have a bunch of cheap games here that you might not have that you don't want to spend the money on. I do facilitate for all classes. It's just not my fault that the game they want is expensive. If you've got expensive taste and you're poor, get a better job. Sorry.
And also, one of the things is when you're collecting for something, you must have acceptance with your budget.
Yeah,
you cannot afford everything you want to collect for. It's just if
correct.
you want to be able to afford for something that is a little bit out of your budget, be able to accept that you need to sacrifice buying some things for the meantime while you say but for that thing that you really want. It's not a race, and that is one of the
It's got
reasons
a bit sad as
one
well
of the
because this
mistakes that
kid, I tell you the story. He's going to come back to me. This kid. I have a golden Game Boy Advance SP. It's £500. I've seen it sold for even more now because the price has gone up since the last gaming market. I've risen the price to £550. That boy is going to come back with £500, expecting it to be 500, but the price has increased. So I've moved the goalposts just for not just for him, but because that's the way it is. So sometimes these prices of products, video game products, will go up if they're scarce and in good condition. So there is something to be said about that, and I do feel bad for that boy because it's something I'm mindful of that he will come back in June expecting to pay 500 for it. But I have no contract with him. That's the price. If he wants to pay 550 for it, that's the way it is. But I have to sell the product based on its actual market value and what I think it's truly worth, because it is my interest as well as anyone else's that I'm looking out for. To be honest, I'll be blunt with you. Part of me doesn't even
well
want it. So there we go.
it,
Because it's such a good, rare item.
it's partly also the exposure of an collector on the
Mm,
gaming groups and his exposure to certain circles. Then he has knowledge that regarding price charting or whatever that makes him go FOMO on something. So
yeah.
if you're not really knowledgeable about the pricing of these things, and you just have your particular budget, it would be much more acceptable for you to buy these things at a price that you are comfortable with. Otherwise, FOMO's gonna hit you the more knowledgeable you are.
It's a tough one. I will say I'll probably be. I do you know what, if that kid does come back, I'll probably be more agreeable to do him a deal or something. To be fair, but the fact of the matter is, you have to talk to me. I mean, if you're like, there are what I've realized as a seller is sometimes I'll just sit there and there was a kid who picked up Castlevania Portrait of Ruin and he was looking at me. So it's a great game, but and he's looking at the £70. I'm like, yeah, I know it's a £70 game. So what? I looked at him bluntly. He's like, yeah, but and because he was young, he didn't know how to negotiate, and he just put the game back down. And I thought maybe I could have taken a fiver off for him. I could have offered it to him,
All
and
right.
I didn't in the end because he just didn't want to have that conversation, or he just didn't know how. So in that circumstance, that was my failing, and that's something I learned. Okay, in future, I'll try and cut a deal with someone who's too young to know to barter. But for that Indian guy that was upset with the mole spot, he's an idiot. He can go. He should have known. Like, he's old enough to know how to barter. If it's someone young, I'll do him a deal, and I'll try and teach them how to barter when I'm selling with them, and I'll indulge them. But anyone else, I'm not going to indulge. But yeah, on that front, and on that bombshell of is enough. This is enough. In all fairness, be happy with your collections. Control your budgets. Obviously, there are things that will be expensive. Just don't worry about it. Don't get FOMO. I think Drew has the right attitude, to be honest. I think he's very balanced in the sense that he doesn't get FOMO. It is something that I'm also mindful of getting FOMO because I'm a reseller and I know how often these products come, but I'm looking at it from a reseller's point of view. As a collector's point of view, I will say that these items will come back every now and then in circulation every now and then. It's just a matter of what condition you want to buy it in, etc., etc. So that's all down to you as an individual. There's no right and wrong, but there are some serious wrongs, which is what Sir Drew said when he mentioned don't take out credit to buy video games. It's silly, unless you're doing some business and you've done a cost-benefit analysis and it works out in your favor. So look, to be happy with the video games you get, because right now we're living in an age where even if you can't collect things, emulation is always there an option for a lot of the retro games if you can't afford to collect it, and that's a good way to play these games now because emulation is 90% there, 99% there. So enjoy the video games you have, and take heed of the pointers that we've said in this podcast, and those are my final thoughts in how to cope with this whole thing.
All right.
All right.
Thank you for that, Sir Biraj. And yep, that's we already reached the third hour, the third hour, guys, and we can probably end the show right now. So let's just do our shameless plugs. Let's start, Sir Drew. Sir Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Facebook and YouTube. You could check my channel called Geek Out Gaijin, and it's all about collecting video games, some short reels about the stuff that I collect and the stuff that I go to. All in the regards of geekery, either it's figures, video games, some English support guides for all of you collectors who like to collect our Japanese video games. And that's it. Geek Out Gaijin both on Facebook and on YouTube.
All right.
Very good.
All
And
right.
that's my
Thank you for
shameless
that,
plug.
Sir Drew. How about Miss I? Miss I, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitch when I have the time to stream. But in the meantime, you can also find my other previous streams on YouTube under Ensling Porter. And just very quick, this is me with Simon Og. No, not Simon.
Cool.
Stephen Og. I keep saying Simon because that's his name on The Walking Dead.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah.
Right.
Cool. Cool.
And Sir Viraj, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on this podcast because I usually do guest star here. Actually, I'm on the staff now, aren't I? You don't pay me enough money. I want a staff job. I should be like Spider-Man, you know. Hey, I'll take the staff job. That's what I should be like. Anyway, you can find me on this podcast. You'll find me on the Sega Mega Masters channel on YouTube. We've taken a break until our man Dan recovers, but there's a lot of me on Sega Mega Masters. We review retro Sega games and Sega content, so it's there. You find me on the Sega Genesis group on Facebook, so that's where I loiter. And I obviously have my retro reselling business, which has started up called Bygone Games. I'm on Twitter, so you just search at Bygone Games UK, and you can follow me on X or Twitter and see what sort of games I have that I keep buying and stocking. I trade here in the UK at gaming markets, but I'm not shy when it comes to international selling. You know, if anyone wants to ask me if I use a certain game that I have, I do trade predominantly, obviously, Nintendo handheld games, so Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, DS, and 3DS, and I do look for the obscure and weird and hard to find things. So you're welcome to look me up. But thank you for joining us, and I love the comment sections. We've had a lot of great comments here. So thanks for liking my mini arcade collection, Julian Espinosa. I appreciate it, and Two Wheel 360. Glad you enjoyed the episode.
He also is a connoisseur of mini arcade machines and legacy retro consoles. So that's why he really likes your collection.
Well, we're good friends now. You be my friend now. Yeah, I love mini arcade.
So our timeless thanks to Halo Hobby, Sir JDM's there, S1LV. What is this? S1LVZ. Baruch Anoika, of course, one of our regulars there. Codin Gutierrez and Sir Julian Espinosa, Sir Marlon Eriscopides is right there. And Two Wheel 360. Yeah. And
JDM,
so let's just look.
Sir JDM has closing messages.
PO Box 758 Cebu City, Cebu, Philippines. 6,000. That's my address, everyone. If you need shelf space, I'll keep your collection safe. That is a public announcement coming from Sir JDM.
Well, I have Metal Gear Solid. My announcement back to you is I've got Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy Color written with your name on it. I'm just waiting for £235 and I can ship it to you. So, okay.
So Sir JDM, I'm keeping this.
All right. So a few words. So let's give it a shout out to our affiliates as well. Shows right there. So you can. So that's what we're showing is BitMap Books. So you can enjoy the history of your favorite video game franchises in colored pages and anecdotes available by getting your first book publication from BitMap Books by using our link that I am going to put right there on our chat right now. So that is BitMap Books. They have a lot of releases so far, reaching from the NES collections, the Super Nintendo collection, the Mega Drive collection, the point and clicks, the computer RPGs, Japanese RPGs, and they also have genre-specific books like King of Fighters, Metal Slug. Oh, and as of now, they also released the Run and Gun games. The Run and Gun Games Compendium. That's the latest release from BitMap Books, right there. And of course, um, our affiliate as well, Streamyard. This show, the Timeless Gamer Show, is also powered by Streamyard. You can start your own online live streams, webinars, podcasts, online classes, and virtual presentations by using our link we're going to provide right there at the chat. And if you are going to use that link, it will give you a 14-day free trial without any credit cards whatsoever. So that is StreamYard.com right there. And that's it, guys. That's the show. On behalf of Sir Dan, Sir Ray, Sir JDM, and Sir Joel, who couldn't be here, our games and our bodies may grow out of date, but our gaming experiences will forever remain. Hey, timeless.
Timeless.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
guys. Thank you all so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you so
Yes, see ya.
much.